Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Nautical. Dead Warrior System, Batch Manufacturing 4 Emperor's Admiral. Chapter 81. It's been evaporated. Such a huge ice cube. It's the Blood Shadow. That's the Akainu Blood Shadow. On the pirate side, the captains were very surprised to see that Josie's big ice block was easily destroyed. But Akainu Blood Shadow's offensive is far from that simple. In line with the rules of courtesy, Shahan directly asked Blood Shadow to add a big move. Meteor Volcano. It's not as simple as Akainu's falling volcanic rocks, but a real killing move. The hugely expanded magma fist still maintained its striking posture, but the next moment, the entire magma fist broke away and flew into the sky like a rocket. And there was more than one. The Akainu Blood Shadow fired one magma fist after another into the sky, reflecting half of the sky in orange. Attention everyone. Whitebeard, red-haired, Beckman and others suddenly changed their expressions. They could see that Shahan, who was standing on the edge of the platform, was commanding the Blood Shadow. The moves he used were definitely not simple, and they felt a vague threat. Sure enough, just a few seconds later, one after another, magma bombs dragged meteor-like trails towards the ice surface of the inner bay, falling randomly, covering an extremely wide area. Boom! As the first meteor volcano exploded on the ice and smashed through the ice, a terrifying scene appeared. A large number of pirates were bombed, splashed, burned, and impacted, all injured and wailing. Whitebeard couldn't bear it any longer. He stood on the bow of the ship and punched him with his backhand to stop the falling lava meteor from hitting the crowd. Shanks is also helpless. Shahan's Blood Shadow can really use moves without any scruples and is not afraid of consuming physical energy. This move alone forced him to wave his sword to stop Meteor Volcano from falling. One after another, Shanks and Whitebeard stopped all the meteors and magma, except those that would not hit ships and people, and kept their eyes on Shahan solemnly. Seeing the turmoil of the pirates on the battlefield, Sengoku was not disappointed because the obstruction did not work too much, and the corner of his mouth curled up in an indistinct manner. This has just begun. Whitebeard and Red Hair are about to face Blood Shadow's moves in person. This is a good thing. Consuming their physical strength is an advantage in itself. In the live broadcast screen, the audience immediately cheered when they saw this. Everyone was very happy, because Marine was obviously better at this time, and the magma that was like a natural disaster shocked everyone. It's the Blood Shadow, the shadow of Akainu Admiral. This is the strength of Shahan Admiral. The control shadow shows the strength of an admiral. No, not one, but three. Starting from Aokiji and Kizaru, the Blood Shadows of 3 admirals have already taken action. Too strong. Blood Shadow Admiral. The pirates were caught off guard and were in a panic, and the people who supported Marine cheered endlessly after being shocked by the scene. On site, the morale of the Marine soldiers increased greatly after seeing the ferocity of Zhu Ying's attack. Come on, defeat these pirates. The 4 emperors teamed up, but they were not as powerful as they thought. Shahan was enough to suppress the opponent's combat power. Whitebeard and Shanks blocked the meteor volcano that fell to the pirate ship, and their expressions were a little ugly. Marine's main force hasn't taken action yet, and Shahan alone is so difficult to deal with. Shanks couldn't help but set his sights on Shahan. As long as he is dealt with, Blood Shadow will naturally lose its due fighting power. At this time, Usopp stood up and aimed the musket at the execution platform. He is a marksman. Observation hockey is so powerful that even Shanks may not be sure to win, and his shooting is even more sharp. Almost no one in the entire sea can surpass Usopp's shooting skills. So when the scope was aimed at Shahan, the eyes of senior executives such as Kizaru, Aokiji, Akainu and Sengoku suddenly changed. Usopp is going to take action. Kizaru was afraid that Shahan would stand on the edge of the platform, but Usopp really succeeded. His sniper attack may not be able to be intercepted 100% even if it is on the path. But Shahan smiled indifferently. It's okay, as long as they don't get close to me, they will do nothing. In fact, when Usopp locked in, Shahan felt a chill in her eyebrows. Then, the muzzle of Weebu's gun burst into flames. A bullet made of sea stone was wrapped around armament hockey. Under the guidance of the sighted aim, it shot directly into Shahan's head. The rotating bullet can even drag out arc-shaped airflow, and it is very fast. This is already faster than the burst of sniper rifle bullets that Shahan is familiar with. Then, let's start a full-scale war. Sha-en remained motionless, looking at the battlefield calmly. Behind him, two bloody figures disappeared instantly. When it reappeared, the golden lion blood shadow had already flown into the path of the bullet. Countless sand and dust in the ground condensed with the movement of Zuying's palm, forming a gray spear-like weapon. Immediately, the golden lion blood shadow pointed it at the menacing armed bullets and threw it out. In a millisecond, the bullet collided with the gray dust. As one might imagine, the spear condensed by golden lion blood shadow using lion fruit did not withstand the bullet, but turned into dust and dispersed at the moment of contact. At the same time, the bullet never broke out of the dust range. What's going on? Usopp's marksman's bullet has stopped moving. Hancock, Moria and the other Shichibukai were directly below, looking up and saying in surprise. Doflamingo, on the other hand, frowned and looked a little unhappy, cursing in his mind. He was defeated by Sha-en so easily. He had been hoping that the pirates would teach Sha-en a lesson. The result was a sniper attack that was louder than thunder. But at this time, Usopp's expression was heavy, and Shanks shook his head. The bullet's haki was disintegrated, and its ability controlled the bullet. The main purpose of the spear gathered by dust is to use it as a medium, so that the golden lion blood shadow can directly hang the bullet. Therefore, in the dust, the bullet made no movement and floated there motionless. It's not that easy for us to attack Sha-en directly. Shanks was not too surprised. Although Usopp was very accurate, there were very few chances of actually attacking Sha-en. This time we also saw the problem. There are too many ways for Sha-en to solve ultra-long-range attacks, so she still has to get closer. Looking at the battle on the field again, Marine and the pirates were already fighting on the ice. Vice Admiral of the Titans, Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral also fought against the captain and officers. At this moment, the blood shadow of Sengoku suddenly appeared in the inner bay. After being noticed by Shanks and others, the normal-sized figure burst into a bright golden light, and continued to grow taller, turning into the form of a giant Buddha. It's Sengoku blood shadow. Get out of the way over there. The sudden appearance of the giant Buddha appeared very close to the pirates, and the captains immediately shouted for their companions to get out of the way. The huge golden Buddha stood in front of the Marines, and the pressure it brought was too great. Even many people had never seen the ability of the Buddha that they hadn't shot for many years. In an instant, the audience watching the live broadcast exclaimed. Dashes of golden light shrouded the battlefield. Shanks and Whitebeard frowned even deeper. As soon as the battle started, Sha-en's sense of oppression was too strong. From Aokiji Blood Shadow's attack to Sengoku Blood Shadow's attack, the combat power was not ordinary. And at this time, the transformed Sengoku Blood Shadow didn't stop, raised his hand and launched it suddenly at the location of Moby Dick and Red Force. Shockwave. The translucent energy fluctuations instantly blasted the ice in front of them, shattering everything along the way, slamming the involved pirates and vomiting blood, and flying backwards with the direction of the impact, and the ones who were closer were thrown flying directly. Shockwave. This is an attack equivalent to that of Martial Marine. The ferocious attack visible to the naked eye made the pirates palpitate. Beckman quickly jumped onto the mast of Red Force, filled the pistol with special bullets in his hand, and then fired at the blaster. ZZZ. Haki lightning is like a spider web entrenched on the bullet head, spinning, pushing the atmosphere like ripples on the water surface. The bullets fired by a pistol are actually at the range of a cannon, carrying Beckman's strong conquerors and armament haki. This collision of unequal volumes touched the beginning, like two steel walls colliding, and there was a bang. A big hole exploded in the ice surface, and the air waves rolled away. The shock wave of the Buddha's blood shadow was stopped by a single shot. Blocked. The pirates below breathed a sigh of relief. They were really frightened by the shock wave just now. But at this time, Beckman's expression did not relax at all, but changed with eyes widened. He saw that on the platform where Sha-en was, a blood shadow quickly disappeared in place, and sprinted through the air at an unimaginable speed. That's right, just stepping on the air in the air, you can even see the appearance of the sonic boom barrier. This sound explosion also attracted the attention of most fighting people, because it was really hard to ignore it. After everyone saw it clearly, they found out that it was the blood shadow of the marine hero Garp. It's Garp blood shadow. Whitebeard's eyes moved slightly, but he didn't choose to make a move. I thought to myself that the last time I fought with Sha-En was only 3 admirals, but this time the blood shadow he has mastered has 3 legendary combat powers, which is really tricky. But Garp's blood shadow made a move and came straight to the pirate ship, and no one could stop it on the way. For example, Marco, Vista and others were all entangled on the ice by the 3 admiral blood shadows. Even if they saw a slight delay, it was too late to stop them. As for Usopp, Beckman just used Haki to shoot. Even if he did it again, he couldn't stop Garp's blood shadow's charge. At this time, Garp's blood shadow rushed rapidly in the air, and black and red lightning bolts erupted from his body. But at this moment Whitebeard only looked up at the beginning, and then kept his eyes on the battlefield. Flashing all the way, the menacing air enveloped the bottom. This kind of momentum immediately made Garp next to Granny he see what move he was going to use. It's a fist-to-bone impact. Arriving above the pirate ship, Garp Blood Shadow used a standard punching posture, facing Moby Dick, and the red force suddenly blasted out. The impact of the punch radiating from the fist seemed to put a filter on the world. The desperate conqueror's Haki rolled up the wind, making the prelude of the fist impact very suffocating. So powerful Haki. He wants to cover all the ships, including us, and attack. The pirates were quite frightened, including the captains and officers, who couldn't help but look heavy. The offensive is coming. The thick black lightning has taken the lead in blasting on the ice, blasting it. A filter-like impact fell in this burst of black lightning. The powerful force of the fist bone impact can destroy all the pirates below, including the pirate ship, with just a tiny bit of power. But it's a time of crisis. Shanks leaps from the red force. The figure in the one-armed cloak looks like a swordsman cutting through the sky, but it actually blocks the impact of the fist fell. And his ultimate conqueror's Haki collided with Garp's blood shadow, causing a dizzying Haki lightning burst. At the same time, the unsheathed griffin sword was coated with a layer of black. Before it could get close to Garp's blood shadow, Shanks slashed upwards. God avoids. The sound of Conqueror's Haki's violent conflict rang in everyone's ears. Wherever you look, a strong wind sweeps and black thunder shines. A black-red slashing sword energy cut through the shroud of fist-bone conflict, and while blocking it, it collided with Garp Blood Shadow's iron fist in the air. Both Conqueror's Haki were attacked from a distance, and the terrifying power of the two created a head-on confrontation. In an instant, not only the aftermath of the impact of power enveloped the area below, but Conqueror's Haki, which made the weak unable to stand, spread throughout Marineford. At the center of the clash between Divine Avoidance and Fist Impact, Ultimate compresses into a ball and explodes with Haki's intense thunder and lightning. It can be said that everyone was shocked by the force of the wind. Whether it was the Marine soldiers or the pirate crew, everyone was stunned in place when they saw the terrifying power caused by the confrontation between top experts. Forget about fighting. This is the pinnacle. Horrible. The ice under the pirate ship could not withstand this pressure at all, and burst in a circular shape. The pirate ship touched the water and floated, and was shaken by the confrontation between the blood shadows of Shanks and Garp. Finally, the intense resistance is over. The two people's moves consumed each other and they were exhausted. Shanks whizzed and fell onto the intact ice on one side. He looked at the Garp blood shadow that also fell next to Sengoku's blood shadow with a solemn expression. With the blow just now, Shanks can conclude that Sha-En's ability, even the legendary level, is 1-to-1, and there is no decline at all. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed, looking straight at Sha-En, who was watching the battle on the platform, thinking about how to attack him directly. Because Blood Shadow is so pervert, just his subordinates Sengoku and Garp Blood Shadow are already very troublesome. On Marine's side, when the soldiers saw Zhuiying going straight for Wonglong and even fighting against the 4 emperors, Zhuiying was confident. With Sha-En Admiral here, we don't have to worry about the 4 emperors on the opposite side. Go ahead. Destroy all these pirates. The battle has continued until now. Except for the Marine elites on the field, almost all the Blood Shadows are fighting against the 2 Sea Emperors. The attack of 3 Admiral Blood Shadows, the Golden Lion Blood Shadow easily blocked the Sharpshooter's Haki bullet, the Garp Blood Shadow, and the confrontation between the Sengoku Blood Shadow and Beckman, the Red Hair. The storm on the field was undoubtedly caused by Blood Shadows. The audience in front of the live broadcast was shocked and dumbfounded. This is Blood Shadow. The name of Marine Admiral really deserves it. Sha-En's combat power is really terrifying. The ones attacking are all legendary combat power. Hero Garp, Buddha Sengoku. Because of Sha and Admiral, the strength of the two has been reproduced. Sengoku and Garp haven't played for a long time, and everyone was shocked when the horrific battle scene unfolded in front of everyone. In front of the live broadcasting equipment among the major islands, with the attack of Admiral's Blood Shadow, there were waves of uproar. This also made many people who still doubted Sha En's own strength lose their temper. What kind of Admiral is this? It's simply a little monster who controls boundless combat power. You must know that what Marineford is facing at this moment is tens of thousands of fierce pirates. And Whitebeard, Redhead, Beckman and other top powerhouses. The subordinates are all legendary, and the two emperors, Whitebeard and Red-Haired, are required to start the game. It seems that the pirate side is a bit cramped. However, this is still the shock brought to everyone on the live broadcast. The Marines and pirates on the scene are the ones who truly appreciate how amazing the oppression of the top battle is. The collision between the red-haired Shanks and Garp's Blood Shadow caused the entire Marineford to be swept into the hockey wind. Just after a pause, Marine sprinted again on the ice led by the giant Vice Admiral, and the people from the two major pirate fleets also swarmed up as the aftermath passed. The war broke out again. But at this time, the Shichibukai were still immersed in the horror of the Blood Shadow. Hancock glanced back at Sha En, full of astonishment, and let the Blood Shadow directly face the four emperors head-on, exerting its 100% strength. She really didn't understand. How did Sha En manage to control such a terrifying Blood Shadow at such a young age? Doflamingo's face was extremely ugly. Looking at a huge hole in the ice that had been blasted, he was silent and had no intention of doing anything. In the middle section of the execution platform, Kizaru, Akainu, and Aokiji all relaxed, and even smiled. According to this situation, they don't need to make a move at all. Sha En alone can let the Blood Shadow hold back the red-haired and Whitebeard, two major pirate groups. After all, ignoring the consumed Blood Shadows and unleashing a natural disaster-like offensive by raising their hands, who can resist these pirates? But Luffy, who was handcuffed on the execution platform, exclaimed worriedly, "Shanks! What is this? How can it be so strong?" Although nervous, it can be seen that Shanks and Whitebeard were a little passive at the beginning, especially when the Blood Shadows shot one after another. The pirates were almost meaningless just by taking a meteor volcano. Rayleigh frowned, seeing for the first time the strength of the Blood Shadow with full firepower, and was very surprised. His Blood Shadow really doesn't consume at all. Besieged by 3 Admiral Blood Shadows, but after seeing Garp Blood Shadows attacking, that kind of performance is as strong as the original owner. Rayleigh can't help but marvel at his heart. No matter who comes today, you cannot be rescued. At this time, Sengoku glanced sideways, seeing Rayleigh's pensive look, and said slowly, "If there is no accident, this war does not even need other admirals to take action. Sha En alone is enough." "Marine, why did this monster appear?" As he spoke, Rayleigh felt confused. If Sha En appeared in the world government, what did they know when they landed on the final island? Can Joey Boy really deal with such a guy? Because the era of great pirates shouldn't have had. Sengoku snorted coldly, and looked at the Blood Shadow on the battlefield with his hands behind his back. At this time, a huge figure appeared in the outer bay, screaming Ace's name, and wading across the rough sea. The huge warship didn't even reach his waist, so he picked it up on his back and threw it towards the inner bay. Seeing this, Sha En narrowed her eyes, observing the monster that was bigger than ordinary giants. Here comes Little Oz. The two sides are now colliding on the ice in the inner bay. With the addition of Little Ozzy, the giant Vice Admiral was knocked into the air, and the front of the pirates began to advance. "Ace, I'm here to save you." Little Ozzy had eyes only for the people on the execution platform, even if Whitebeard persuaded him not to charge desperately. "There are Blood Shadows ahead. Little Ozzy will die if he rushes over like this." Whitebeard took a deep breath, and his eyes locked on Sengoku Blood Shadow, Garp Blood Shadow. Their 2 Blood Shadows are like a gap that pirates cannot cross, guarding under the defensive wall of the inner bay, and will be attacked as long as pirates approach. And in midair, the Golden Lion Blood Shadow floated there with its arms folded, preventing airborne attacks. In contrast, the 3 Blood Shadows did not appear to be so imposing in their battles with Beckman, Beasta, Marco and others. "It's time." Redhead Shanks has also been scanning the battlefield. Now the pirates on the left and right can't break through, they can only open a small gap, which is useless at all, as far away as the square. The best direction is to move forward in a straight line, and use the powerful combat power of the pirates to tear a bloody path among the elite Marines. And at this time, the appearance of Little Ozzy is just in time. Whitebeard also knew that Little Ozzy could not be persuaded to rush over step by step, so he took the opportunity to issue orders directly. All charge! The loud voice spread across the battlefield, and everyone in the Whitebeard pirates immediately raised their arms and shouted, "Yes! Dad! Brothers! Kill in!" And Shanks is also a member of the command of the entire pirate group, charging towards the inner bay of Marineford. Because the gigantic Little Ozzy stepped on the ice, and quickly approached the Marine lineup within a few steps. Marco, Vista, Joes, Ramank, the captains of the Whitebeard pirates and the captains of the big ships followed closely behind. On the other side is the relatively small number of red hair pirates, led by Beckman, Usopp, Lakilu and others, sprinting fiercely. Looking at Shaw-en on the execution platform, the flow of people is like a black spear piercing into the center of the square. They all launched a charge. Akainu Sakazuki couldn't help raising his eyes, his pupils froze. With such a huge number of pirates plus the captains and cadres, and with so many people, there are more than 20 strong hockey. The strong hockey here refers to the level that can pose a threat to Admiral. 3 Admiral will also be washed away by them. Do you want to open a path directly? Little Ozzy is in front. Anyone who makes a shot will get hit twice. Kizaru also saw the intention of Whitebeard and the red-haired Tululing to charge. People like Marco and Beckman are not vegetarians. Anyone who attacks Little Oz will definitely be seized by them to focus their fire. And ordinary Marine warriors, even the giant Vice Admiral, can't withstand Little Oz's charge. Garp was ordered not to participate in the war. Although he was also watching the battlefield, he was very confused when he saw the scene. What should I do? Both of his grandsons were about to be executed. He really hoped that these pirates could rush over. But such an obvious offensive was met with artillery fire pouring from the defensive wall. The Marine soldiers also understood that the troops they had invested now could not stop such an impact, so they could only retreat in a cold sweat and let the artillery fire consume them first. Black smoke and fire continued to explode from Little Oz's body, but he was not afraid and moved forward without saying a word. All the pirates who followed the charge took action and swept away the Marines. Seeing that such a charge was very effective, Sengoku on the execution platform had serious eyes and unconsciously lowered his head to look at the platform where Shaw-en was. Do you want to work hard? Shaw-en then gave psychic instructions to the Blood Shadow. Momosegi's Blood Shadow behind him, Akainu's Blood Shadow near the defensive wall, and Garp's Blood Shadow moved instantly. The Shichibukai originally wanted to take a symbolic action, but in the blink of an eye, they saw 3 red figures gathering together, and they rushed towards the pirate lineup without fear. Are you crazy? He actually let the Blood Shadow go up and die. Moonlight Moria screamed strangely, very puzzled. At least there are hundreds of people at the front, and most of them are cadres and captains. Even if Garp Blood Shadow rushes over, he will be attacked by everyone. Once the Blood Shadow is destroyed, wouldn't it mean that his arm has been cut off? As a result, Hancock, Doflamingo and others had not yet reacted as soon as they finished speaking. The first demon, Oz, was hit head-on by the Blood Shadow of Garp. Fist Bone. Meteorite, the large-scale punch impact visible to the naked eye, accompanied by strong hockey, knocked Little Oz flying in an instant. That's right, even the huge body couldn't withstand the terrifying power of Garp's Blood Shadow, so it flew into the air. The huge shadow flew over the heads of the pirates, frightening many of the charging pirates. Even the violent wind in the aftermath knocked over many people in the pirate team. It was very powerful. Before Little Oz landed, the pirates rushed out. What does he want to do? Beckman was very puzzled. Why did Shaw-en only send these 3 Blood Shadows to rush forward? Following him, he was the first to pounce on the fallen Garp Blood Shadow. Beckman is not only great at shooting, he is also not weak at physical skills. A side kick collided hard with Garp Blood Shadow's fist, and the aura that exploded instantly spread like a wind shield. But Beckman was always inferior to Garp in physical skills, and was knocked back by fists before he could hold on for a few seconds. A few seconds are enough for Lakiru, Usopp and others to complete the siege, and a barrage of bombardment will hit Garp's Blood Shadow. Garp Blood Shadow is Sha-En's strongest Blood Shadow at present. Such an attack can cause no serious damage, but its movement is suddenly restricted. On the other side, Akainu's Blood Shadow was like a meteor, his body completely turned into lava and rushed into the crowd. Immediately, the volcano erupted. Pieces of roaring magma bombs scattered in all directions. Many of the crew members of the Whitebeard Pirates and Red Hair Pirates were hit so hard that they could not stand still. But the next second, Gabu, the leader of the Red Hair Pirates, opened his fang mouth, and a beam-like shock wave went straight to the Blood Shadow of Akainu. Boom! The shock wave under the strong blessing of Haki shook the Blood Shadow, followed closely by Beasta's slash, the bullet inserted by Usopp's wife, and the joint attack of several captains of the Beard Pirates. Exclamation mark. It can be said to be more terrifying than Garp Blood Shadow. Obviously the pirates are more afraid of Akainu Blood Shadow's ability to clear the screen. At this time, Momosegi's Blood Shadow was slightly weaker, but he followed Akainu's Blood Shadow in. He turned around and used powerful slashes to block many pirates who came to compensate for the damage. However, there are too many pirates and their power is not weak. No matter how powerful Akainu Blood Shadow is, he is still the same as Garp Blood Shadow on the other side. He was beaten back and forth, and some attacks could even be seen causing some damage to the body. Get rid of some now. Lakiru was delighted when he saw this. Maybe he could save Sha-En, who made a mistake from 3 major battles. Not that simple, but when they turned around, the expressions of the Whitebeard Pirates did not relax at all, but became even more solemn. Okay Zhao, Sha-En's Blood Shadow has the power of resurrection. The 2 known Blood Shadows are Akainu and Momosegi. Marco explained to the Red Hair Pirates decisively and quickly. Usopp, Rakiru, Gabu and others suddenly widened their eyes, and they seemed to remember that Sha-En's Blood Shadow really seemed to have this ability. It's just that they didn't think about it for a while. They thought it was just a rumor, spreading rumors, but they didn't expect it to be true. In an instant, the pirates besieging Akainu Blood Shadow became even more aggressive. Even if it can be resurrected, can it support so many people? Brothers, while he can't move freely now, kill him. A cadre of Red Hair Pirates shouted with an angry look on his face. Beckman also knew about the ability to resurrect, and he was even more surprised by the Garp Blood Shadow in front of him, which was covered in various haki, slashes, and gunfire. If this one can also be resurrected, then the situation will be really bad. But before I could continue to think of anything, suddenly, more magma burst out from the Blood Shadow of Akainu. It was really like a volcanic crater erupting, instantly encompassing all the pirates within the range. The advantage of having more people came to light at this time. Armament haki and the pirates joined forces, which was enough to block the magma. Marco, Beasta and others also took the opportunity to attack Kai at close range again. Dog Blood Shadow. The 2 sides quickly approached and fought together. On Beckman's side, continuous attacks obviously cannot completely suppress Garp's Blood Shadow. If we can't deal a fatal blow to it, we can't delay it at all. Beckman wanted to take Shanks or Whitebeard by surprise. But the next second, black and red lightning broke out on Garp, avoiding Beckman's blockage. Like a locomotive, it rushed into the group of pirates and came into close contact with Rakiru and many other cadres. Bodies, fighting together brazenly. Kill these Blood Shadows. Rakiru was punched away by Garp Blood Shadow, but he quickly rolled back and shouted for attack. It is difficult for 2 fists to defeat 4 hands, let alone hundreds of times more people to besiege, even if some of these people are not that strong. But he rushed forward without fear of death and used all kinds of attacks to prevent Garp Blood Shadow from clearing the field directly. For a time, the moves on the battlefield were bombarded frequently, with almost no gaps, and they kept falling on the 3 Blood Shadows. At the same time, Garp Blood Shadow, Akainu Blood Shadow, and Shadow suffered damage and also knocked many pirates away directly. This is a 3 volts battle. Doflamingo seemed to have seen that Sha-En wanted to use the resurrection mechanism to consume the pirate army, but he did not say it out loud. Others Shichibukai looked strange, and viewers watching the live broadcast from all over the world also looked strange, and were even confused by Sha-En's operation. Sha-En, what is this? The opponent made a comprehensive breakthrough and only allowed 3 blood shadows to be thrown forward. Are you going to die? Even though blood shadow is very strong, it can't withstand the attack of so many pirates, right? The blood shadow admiral is only an 8-year-old child after all. It is normal for him to behave recklessly. It seems that Marine is going to lose 3 blood shadows. The underground forces, major royal families and many nobles looked worried, as if the blood shadow was their hope, and they suddenly felt depressed when they saw Sha-En's reckless behavior. I thought that Zhuiying was good at fighting, but I couldn't bear to go out and die like this. People everywhere were also in an uproar. They were adults and they still had some eyesight. How could 3 of them face the enemy army during a war? No, Marine executives don't seem to be stopping Sha-En's actions. Of course, it is not without discerning people. People from the Sea Transport King, Germa 66 and other families watched the live broadcast and discovered something fishy. Sha-En was on the platform under the execution platform. Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru behind him not only did not stop him, but instead propped their heads and watched intently. Sengoku, Ranmahi didn't even change her expression, her eyes remained the same. The performance of the senior management itself is abnormal. And now on the battlefield, among the pirates on the ice, Garp's blood shadow combined with the blood red color all over his body is like the devil coming to the world. The strong wind whipped up between punches, creating ravines in front of him. The raging hockey made a powerful impact, and many captains could not withstand the power of Garp's blood shadow, and flew straight backwards, smashing onto the ice in a panic. The next second, various attacks flooded Garp's blood shadow again. The powerful armament hockey defended against most of the power. Soon, the blood shadow of Garp, whose cloak had been torn, flew out. Keep fighting without death. If this continues, even if we can defeat it, we will lose many people. We can't continue to fight against the blood shadow. The same is true for Akainu blood shadow and Momoshiki blood shadow, and Momoshiki blood shadow is slightly weaker. They have suffered various injuries, but they are still fierce. All kinds of heavy blows are right in front of you without any hesitation. Gradually, the momentum of the pirates weakened, and even Marco, Bista and others had no better way to deal with the blood shadow of the suicidal attack. The crew members of the Whitebeard pirates and the Red Hair pirates are extremely fearful. Anyone who touches the blood shadow will be mercilessly attacked. Many people have even been beaten away and never come back. Instead, the changes on the battlefield turned into pirates running away one after another, including the officers and captains, whose faces were extremely ugly. Such a scene makes the audience even more confused. What happened? Why do the pirates keep dodging? They miss such a good opportunity to kill them. How can it be so easy to kill? One is Admiral, the other is the shadow of the hero Garp. Even the shadow of Momoshiki Vice Admiral is so powerful, the pirates cannot make a fatal blow. Do not understand. The pirates can't stand the suicide attack. Is it Sha-En's tactic? Audiences from all over the world saw that the blood shadow was not directly killed by so many people, but it felt strange to avoid it frequently, and speculated that Sha-En did it on purpose. Sure enough, it was very effective. The pirates' charge was really blocked by the 3-day relentless attack. Wherever they went, except for Marco, Joes and other captains, as well as Beckman, Lakilu and others, no one could block the attack of blood shadow. But at this time, what do Whitebeard and the Redhead want to do? The Marine executives are also watching from the sidelines. Everyone couldn't understand, but they still vaguely felt that blood shadow was going to lose. After all, there are too many pirates, and too many strong men, but the 3 blood shadows can't stop them. As expected, the battlefield was completely messed up by the 3 blood shadows, and soon with the cooperation of the cadres, they took the first ACCG opportunity to deal with the weakest Momoshiki blood shadow. The captains of the Whitebeard pirates, Blenheim, Lakyo, Izo, Curiel and others gave up on the blood shadow of Akainu, turned around and rushed to where the blood shadow of Momoshiki was. Lakyo's meteor hammer is wrapped around armament hockey, and the blood shadow of Momoshiki who is turning and cutting across is under the hood. Don't be impulsive. Seeing this, Yizang exclaimed. Blood shadow is completely playing with injuries in exchange for injuries, and Lakyo's actions are too risky. However, Lakyo couldn't stand this kind of aggrieved style of play for a long time, and even directly greeted Yizang, Blenheim and others, "Don't worry about me. Kill it." But even though he wanted to take the risk, he was prepared to resist Momosegi's Blood Shadow, but he still couldn't completely dodge the Blood Shadow's ultimate move. The Blood Shadow's sharp sword light slashed across the chain of the meteor hammer, and at the same time as it scraped out a large number of sparks, the sword light pierced Lakyo's abdomen directly with a turn. Asshole. Yizang, Blenheim, and Coulier were already halfway through their moves, and Yizang even shot. What I didn't expect was that Momosegi's Blood Shadow's attack was so tricky, changing from slashing to stabbing, wounding Lakyo in an instant. But at the same time, Lakyo's meteor hammer also hit the head of Momosegi's Blood Shadow fiercely, knocking his body into a crooked position, and bleeding from his head. Red to black blood flowed out. Then, the angry Yizang, Blenheim, and Riel's attacks came one after another. Boom. Take Haki's bullet and shoot it into Momosegi Blood Shadow's body at close range. Kuriel's broadsword slashed straight down. Blenheim stepped forward to perform boxing, aiming at the heart of Momosegi's Blood Shadow. But at this moment, the long sword in Blood Shadow's hand was pulled out from Lakyo's body directly, and all the Haki penetrated into the long sword and a new sword light appeared. Blenheim screamed, and after hitting the Blood Shadow, he was slashed by the sword energy and flew out. Blood splatter. At the same time, Momosegi's Blood Shadow was continuously traumatized, and finally couldn't bear it anymore. The wound on his body worsened, and a large amount of black blood gushed out and dried up like a balloon. Momosegi Blood Shadow exchanged 1 for 2, causing serious injuries to the two captains. The audience watching the live broadcast exploded with excitement and trembling eyes. Killed. The Blood Shadow of Momosegi Vice Admiral. Was killed by pirates. It's just that two captains were seriously injured and Blood Shadow was killed. Isn't this a big loss? Shaw-en Admiral is too reckless, let the other Blood Shadows withdraw quickly. Every disadvantage created will frighten the people, because it may become a breakthrough point for the pirates, eventually leading to Marine's defeat. But soon, they discovered that the pirates were avoiding Momosegi's shadow at the call of Marco, Vista and others. Immediately, a shocking scene happened. Momosegi's blood-shadowed skin quickly recovered like a balloon at this moment. This process was so fast that in just a blink of an eye, the blood shadow of Momosegi had already resurrected, picked up the sword at his feet, and continued to kill Izo and the others without saying a word. Resurrection. The blood shadow has actually come back to life. Could it be? How stupid. Shaw-en Admiral can fight Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom one after another and survive unharmed. How could she send a blood shadow to die? It turns out that she can be resurrected. Blood Shadow is not afraid of death, the only ones who are afraid of death are these pirates. It's too powerful. It's really too strong. People who were originally extremely worried finally understood what was going on at this time in shock. Especially those who were looking forward to Marine's victory were ecstatic. Almost at the same time, cheers erupted from all over the world. Immortal Blood Shadow. At the scene, Gecko Moria was so frightened that he took 2 steps back, his eyes trembling. Shaw-en's blood shadow is not as good as his zombie. It has the superpower that perfectly replicates the original body. Now that it has the ability to resurrect, what if the 2 royal groups below join forces? I have to say that this shocked him so much that he was very envious of Shaw-en's ability. Doflamingo heard Moria's shocking exclamation and couldn't help but turn around and said, Shaw-en is such a brainless person. All the blood shadows on the stage have the ability to resurrect. What? Even Garp's blood shadow is revived. Mihawk, Hancock and even the always calm Tyrant Bear couldn't help but turn around and look at Doflamingo. Apparently, Doflamingo already knew about this. And when I heard what he said, I suddenly felt that every one of the shadows below really had the ability to be resurrected. It's really scary. 3 blood shadows. I'm afraid that the hero Garp alone can struggle with the large army below for a long time and cause serious damage to the pirates. Hancock was filled with fear and finally understood how terrifying Shaw-en was. Looking back, sure enough, the little figure above crossed his arms and looked at the battlefield calmly, without any fluctuation at all. Whitebeard, Redhead. How should they deal with it now? Mihawk's eyes narrowed slightly, and he couldn't help but think of the red-haired situation. Although he may not take action, it seems that Admiral Shaw-en, the most terrifying person in the audience, is capable enough alone to stop the 4 emperors from joining forces. If Marshal Sengoku still wants to counterattack, the tens of thousands of pirates below may not be able to withstand it. Of course, Mihawk didn't know what Whitebeard and the red-haired two were thinking at the moment. But it's not that Whitebeard and Redhair don't want to go up, it's just that there are only 3 blood shadows, so they can't act rashly. The resurrection of Momosegi's blood shadow revealed the horror of the blood shadow in Shaoen's hands, and it also completely ignited the confidence of the Marines, and their morale rose again, which made them very excited. Meanwhile, the 5 elders at Mariajoy sit among the powers. The light on the live broadcast screen shone on their faces, and it can be seen that the Wu stars are very pleased with Shaoen. Shaoen's ability is indeed very strong, except that it doesn't feed back the strength to the main body, it is almost stronger than the fruit of the name of God. After all, it is not the name of a god, but this is already very pervert. Whitebeard, the red-haired man, is forced to be like this, just 3 blood shadows who will be resurrected. This kid is also very strategic. Unfortunately, if the affairs of the Roswald family have nothing to do with him, this kid is enough to be promoted to the Holy Land. It's not certain yet, wait for Gellinger to make sure. Sa Tansheng said to each other, looking at the screen without turning their heads to communicate. In their view, Shaoen is indeed rare. Talents who have developed the blood shadow fruit ability to this level at only 8 years old will definitely surpass them in the future. Pity. At this moment, there was a sound of heavy footsteps coming from outside the door. I saw Gellinger directly push the door and broke in. His face was extremely cold, and he seemed to be full of anger in his chest. There as a result, a guard temporarily left the team and clearly saw the cloaked man appearing and entering the auction. Gellinger briefly described the matter, but his tone was very annoyed. Because now, it is basically confirmed that Shaoen did it. Cloaked man. The 5 elders looked at each other, then looked at the battlefield on the live broadcast screen, and their expressions suddenly became extremely serious. That's right, although I didn't see him directly, it is basically confirmed that as the commander of the Knights of God, I have the right to act. Geringer smiled solemnly. The cloaked man was only dressed by the blood shadow of Shaoen in the entire sea, and Saint Geringer was even sure that it was the one worn by the blood shadow. And being able to appear at the death scene of celestial dragons at that time, including what the previous guard said in a vague perspective. I would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Shaoen did it, and it must not be tolerated. After the 5 elders confirmed it, they blurted it out without hesitation and suddenly became very angry. They felt so relieved just now, but now they want to get rid of Shaoen. It's Roger, it's Rox, it's people like Monkey D. Dragon. No matter how much potential he has, if he can kill the celestial dragons, he must not be allowed to stay. Marineford still needs him on the battlefield now, and the blood shadow lineup he has is very strong. The 5 elders turned their heads, their expressions were a little complicated, from admiration to fear as they watched the battle on the live broadcast. Among the 7 blood shadows, there are legends and 3 admirals. It is not so easy to win even the Holy Spirit of Geringer. I'm here to tell you that Shaoen killed the celestial dragons, and it's impossible for anyone else to commit the crime, so it's up to me to end his life. Besides, I have already sent people to Marineford. Saint Geringer immediately confidently stated that the Knights of God could handle it. 5 elders glanced at him and nodded. He's going to be sanctioned, but Marineford's war is also important, so it's up to you. Even if they wanted to kill Shaoen, 5 elders still wanted to squeeze the last of his value. Shaoen didn't know that she was exposed by a guard in an assassination. At this moment, he was standing on the edge of the platform, looking down at Whitebeard, who was beaten with a headache, and the red-haired 2 royal groups. Ordinary pirates can't rush through it at all. Even if they pass, what greets them is either the artillery fire of the marine or the attack of other blood shadows. If you want to go all out, you can only clear the Garp blood shadow, Akainu blood shadow and Momoseги blood shadow, or you can only retreat and find other attack routes. The captains also complained endlessly. Dad, this blood shadow is completely immune to death. It is exactly the same as last time, without any weakness. Vista clutched his chest, mouth Kakuzu already had traces of bloodline wiping. Just now, in order to solve these 3 blood shadows, they decided to risk killing one of them and completely destroy one of them. Marco, Beckman and other top captains and cadres joined forces, and all of them were injured before Beckman's Conqueror's hockey entanglement attack gave Garp the Blood Shadow killing blow. When he was about to die, Garp's Blood Shadow punched and smashed the auxiliary ship of the Whitebeard pirates into pieces, and also hit Vista, injury. But in a blink of an eye, Garp's Blood Shadow returned to its original state again under the excited and shocking eyes of the Marines and the terrified eyes of the pirates, and the breath was still bursting. Desperate for life, the number of pirates who died under Blood Shadow's hands is already beyond count. On the other side, the Blood Shadow of Akainu was delayed by the remaining cadres and captains and lost almost hundreds of elites before driving the Blood Shadow into the ice and killing it. Under the immersion of sea water, even the strength of the Admiral level will be annihilated so that you cannot be resurrected. The pirates were excited, but a frightening scene happened. After Akainu's Blood Shadow was killed underwater, a large piece of melted ice formed steam and rose, and he was directly resurrected in midair. Immediately, a rain of magma fell, bombarding the besieging pirates, screaming and crying, and the large ice surface was directly expanded and melted. At this moment, most of the ice that had been frozen for several meters in the entire inner bay has melted away. Outrageous. Amazing. The sky has thick dark clouds for some reason, like the haze covering the hearts of the pirates, which is suffocating. The three resurrected Blood Shadows are powerful, the pirates are terrified, and the audience is shocked. Whitebeard, Newgate and red-haired Shanks could no longer wait for the opportunity and had to do it themselves. Garp Blood Shadow kills the quartet. Wherever it goes, it is like a whale entering a school of fish. The pirates evaded in a hurry, and those who were too late were all blown away by their fists. They couldn't stop the legendary combat power at all. How could this be? Will our Whitebeard pirates be defeated by the Blood Shadow blocking the square? A pirate crew member of the Whitebeard pirates stood there with a weapon in hand, looking shocked and bewildered. But then, before he had time to react, a strong gust of wind broke through the uneven surface of the water and rushed straight in. It was the strength of Garp's Blood Shadow's indiscriminate fist, with the Conqueror's attack in it, and it was unbearable damage for such a minion. At the same time, there were several Whitebeard crew members standing here, and their faces suddenly looked terrified. Back off! Suddenly he shouted loudly. Whitebeard held a naginata, and his figure of more than 8 meters fell from the sky in front of them. Both feet landed on the ground, trampled on the ice under their feet, and slammed in the direction of Garp's Blood Shadow in one fell swoop. Sha-En also saw the actions of Whitebeard and Redhead, so she simply let the Blood Shadow not dodge, and directly confronted the 4 emperors. Without any hesitation, Garp turned around and punched Whitebeard in the same direction. Sizzle. In an instant, the extremely violent hockey conflict broke out. The power caused by the fierce conflict of hockey formed an arc, and fierce hockey lightning bursts were fired. Your Blood Shadow don't want to be presumptuous anymore. Whitebeard's eyes flashed with anger. If the overall situation hadn't allowed him to take action directly, he would have been unable to bear the torture of his men by Garp's Blood Shadow. He didn't know if Sha-En could hear it through the Blood Shadow, but he still roared. The muscles on his arms surged like a horned dragon. There was a click. The atmosphere breaks, and the cracks spread visible to the naked eye. The rumbling vibrations spread throughout the inner bay and the square. Everyone could feel the ground and the ocean shaking. Looking again, it turned out that it was Whitebeard and Garp Blood Shadows fighting against each other, and his eyes widened. Doesn't this mean that the marine heroes are fighting against the strongest man in the world? What followed immediately was the crazy aftermath of the collision between the two top powerhouses. The pirates were blown away, and even the marines on the defensive wall of the inner bay were not spared. They all hit the wall and looked at Garp's Blood Shadow in shock. Even a giant like Little Oz can't stand firmly. It's so scary. Go help Dad. The captains on Marco's side immediately couldn't help but want to go up and help Whitebeard besiege Garp Blood Shadow. Don't worry. Breakthrough. Whitebeard roared without looking back. It was the wrong choice to besiege this immortal Blood Shadow at this moment. Taking this opportunity to rush into the square was the right thing to do. These Blood Shadows are all immortal. Let's attack the square first. Marco also reacted, understood what Whitebeard meant, and quickly took the lead to greet everyone. The aftermath was not over yet, and the marine below and the marine on the square could not withstand the impact of the two conquerors' hockey. It was a good time to break through. This is indeed the case. As soon as the Marines stood up, Marco and his men were already approaching and past the Garp Blood Shadow. And the Blood Shadow couldn't get rid of Whitebeard's hands, so Sha-En simply let them charge at will. Anyway, there are still Blood Shadows ahead. The confrontation between Whitebeard and Garp Blood Shadow came to an end. With the support of Shock Fruit, Garp Blood Shadow's response was still a little weak and was repelled a little. However, the ice surface under their feet completely exploded in a large area, causing the two of them to they all had to retreat. The vibration that affected the island finally calmed down. It's over. It's so scary, the strongest people in the world facing off against each other. Whether it's Marine, pirates or even the audience watching the live broadcast, they were shocked by the power of the two's fight. But soon, before I could take a breath, there was another sudden explosion. A sword light of hundreds of meters flashed past. The stronger Haki added to the sword light, forming a black and red color, streaking across the place where the magma was rolling. I saw that the Blood Shadow of Akainu, which had always maintained its magma form and forced the pirates to retreat again and again, was separated by a sword. The sword light moved forward without hesitation, even cutting a large hole in the low black clouds in the sky. This sword is very powerful. The scene created was no less than that of Mihawk's only sword, which immediately shocked everyone who thought the aftermath was over. Are you going to be so exaggerated that you actually split the capital of heaven? The one who got hit was the Blood Shadow of Akainu. Boss, Shanks. The person who took action was the red-haired Shanks. Beckman, Usopp, Rakiru and others immediately breathed a sigh of relief and quickly gathered together. You break through with Marco and the others, leave this to me. Shanks raised his sword with one arm and stared solemnly at the magma that was divided into two halves. Good. Beckman nodded, and without saying a word, he led the people and rushed to Marco's place. As for Momoshiki Blood Shadow, there are other people to control it, so there is no need for them to waste time on it. Now, the two ruthless Blood Shadows were finally confronted by the four emperors themselves, and the pirate coalition was liberated and quickly followed. And Shanks is very serious, or rather tricky. Immune to death, the Blood Shadow that is not afraid of consumption. Even if he is stronger than Zuiying, he doesn't dare to underestimate him in the slightest. When Sha-En saw this scene, she did not immediately stop it. Instead, she raised her eyes and looked at Sengoku and Granny He. If you really want to invade the square, then go ahead. Sha-En decided not to let other Blood Shadows take action, but focused on Whitebeard, the red-haired one. The fighting style of the immortal Blood Shadow is completely different from that of humans. It was the first time for the red-haired Shanks to face the Blood Shadow of Akainu. Fortunately, he maintained an absolutely serious attitude in dealing with it. When Beckman and others left in a hurry, the Blood Shadow of Akainu did not close up immediately, but fell towards Shanks in the form of two giant magma balls. The purpose is simple: get close and fight to the death. Shanks didn't even coat the blade with flames, and let go of Haki directly. The Conqueror's Haki, which even the Vice Admirals couldn't stand, distorted the air and suppressed Akainukage's sense of knowledge. The next moment, he dodged almost instantly, came to the top of the two masses of magma, and slashed out with a sword. Another black and red Haki slash. Akainu Blood Shadow's reaction was not slow. He quickly closed his body and punched Dark Hound with his backhand. The distance between the two of them is so close at the moment. If Shanks hits it, he will also bear the damage from Dark Hound. Even so, Shanks' temper could not help but freeze in his eyes. The immortal Blood Shadow was really cruel. But he couldn't resist Akainu's Blood Shadow move, because he couldn't block it with his sword, so he had to give up the last step and dodge Dark Hound. However, Akainu Blood Shadow didn't want to let Shanks go just like that. His lower body transformed into a flamethrower, and he steadied himself in midair and rushed towards Shanks. But unfortunately, after withdrawing the move, Shanks no longer felt as awkward as before. Griffin blocked the long sword in his hand, and the Dark Hound that extended again hit it. Even Haki, who has surpassed the standard level of 4 emperors, is very powerful, and the Dark Hound is like water hitting the steel plate, completely dispersing. If you're close, you may not have enough skill to handle it. He is not afraid of death, but without his knowledge, Shanks can rely on his body skills to withstand the fierce attack of Akainu's Blood Shadow. But at this time, it was a different scene on Whitebeard's side. First of all, Garp Blood Shadow is far stronger than Akainu Blood Shadow. It is not as clumsy as Garp. It reaches its peak when it strikes. The fist bone impact suddenly exploded against Whitebeard when he sprinted again. The power of the fan-shaped spread directly dispersed most of the low clouds in the sky. Whitebeard was also undaunted. He noticed from the corner of his eye that Marco and his men had walked away. He immediately raised his hand and faced Haki, who was no weaker than Garp's Blood Shadow, to fight against him. While he was resisting most of the blow, he raised his other hand and hit him hard. Click. The atmosphere is cracked. The sword energy of the shaking knife spread over, slightly deflecting Garp's Blood Shadow, and the power of the offensive was greatly reduced. It is always a Blood Shadow, even if Tien Pu himself is there. Whitebeard's eyes were fierce. Just dragging the Blood Shadow was not his style. A naginata as long as Kong Yunchi played in his hand like a light toy, turning and slashing towards the Blood Shadow. But this time, Garp's Blood Shadow didn't dodge at all. His whole body was covered with black armament Haki, and he fought against him with his fists raised. Go! Boom! The strong wind spread, and the two of them retreated at the first touch, because the ice surface could not withstand the power of the attack, and large pieces fell down. One person and one shadow, there was a tacit understanding of finding a place to stay, and then they started to fight each other again. At this point, perhaps Garp's Blood Shadow is not as fierce as Akainu's Blood Shadow against Red Hair, but it's not that Garp's Blood Shadow is different, but that without a foothold, it can't fight. Sunbird performs life-for-life attacks. Between jumps and confrontations, and the red-haired Shanks and the Blood Shadow of Akainu fighting back and forth in midair, the aftermath and impact caused a large area of ice in the inner bay to completely disappear. Only ice floes are left rippling with the sea water. Marco and Beckman took the lead and began to attack the square. Coupled with Little Oz's huge body to clear the way, it was actually very effective. 3 Admiral did not move. Aokiji Blood Shadow, Kizaru's Shadow could not stop them. But at this time, Whitebeard didn't notice that the Sengoku Blood Shadow was not actually involved in the battle of either side, and he could not be distracted now, fighting fiercely with the Garp Blood Shadow. Just like the red-haired side, the frequency and speed of the fights were so fast that everyone was shocked. Too powerful. 4 Emperors, Admiral, Legend. How many people will never see a strong man of this level fight in their lifetime, and only have confrontations with rumors? Especially Sha-En. Everyone is shocked now. His Blood Shadow directly dragged the 2 Sea Emperors off the stage, so that they could barely hold back to let others have a breakthrough. Opportunity. What a terrifying ability this is. People all over the world were so nervous that they forgot to speak. At the scene, Whitebeard had sweat on his forehead. Garp Blood Shadow is really difficult to deal with. Whitebeard fought fiercely for more than 10 minutes, but his breath was a little disordered at first. However, the Blood Shadow will not stop without the slightest hesitation. Facing the naginata dropped by Whitebeard again, Garp Blood Shadow still does not dodge. Whitebeard performed a damage-replacing attack, with his fist facing his chest. Snort. Whitebeard had played against Akainu Blood Shadow before, and after playing with Garp Blood Shadow for so long, he would not be reckless in exchanging injuries with him. As soon as the sword turned, it would split Garp's arm, and at the same time deflect his body to relieve the attack on himself. But at this moment, a touch of golden light burst out from nothing to 1,000. Whitebeard's eyes were serious, and he didn't need to turn his head to know that it was Sengoku's Blood Shadow attacking him. The huge golden Buddha was pushed out with a palm, and the shock wave instantly tore through the ice and sea water, rushing towards it. This is a war, it's not about fighting alone. Brother's Shadow can also prepare. Sha-En looked at this scene, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Everything is under control. Facing the left and right pincers, especially when Garp's Blood Shadow exchanged moves with him, it was impossible for Whitebeard to dodge so easily. Snort. Whitebeard snorted heavily. The burst of strength all over his body made his expression become ferocious. The saber is still going down, but the whole body is visibly vibrating with the naked eye. Accompanied by black thunder, Whitebeard erupts into a terrifying Haki. He actually chose to abruptly block the shock wave of the Buddha behind him. Immediately after shouting, he abruptly chopped Garp's Blood Shadow back, and was enveloped by the shock wave before turning around. The strong impact made Whitebeard grit his teeth, bent down and carried it with impatience. But at this moment, Garp's blood shadow that was split into the air jumped into the air at some point, and fell towards Whitebeard like a shooting star. Whitebeard was resisting the shock wave, and couldn't dodge the attack of Garp's blood shadow for a short time. Even though he turned around and threw a backhand punch, he was also affected by the attacks from two directions, and his eyes widened. With a bang, the air waves rolled past, and everyone in the Whitebeard pirates turned their heads. They were immediately frightened and shouted worriedly, "Dad!" The arc-shaped hockey's punch bent Whitebeard's body down, and the tyrannical power was repeated, 4-8 zeros, one after another. Such a huge movement made Shanks notice Whitebeard's plight, and his expression changed drastically. Just about to turn around, but was blocked by endless magma, and could only look into the distance through the raging fire. It is impossible for a Kainu's blood shadow to allow him to pass by easily, ignoring the attack again, and using moves to attack Shanks. At this time, Garp's blood shadow, who also gave up all defenses and only attacked, was only a few meters away from Whitebeard. As soon as the shock wave pressure from Sengoku's blood shadow receded, Whitebeard, who immediately had a chance to react, stepped forward, raised his blade and swung it violently. Out! Hockey's violent and turbulent sound pierced the sky. Shock Fruit's ability explodes crazily, and the air cracks spread wherever the blade passes. Hockey on Garp's blood shadow also couldn't withstand Whitebeard's fierce knife. It looked as if it was completely wrapped by the shock, and the lower body was directly cut open, blood water poured out of the body, and it was suspended strangely. But this blow didn't make Garp's blood shadow die directly, and the attack with Conqueror's entanglement also broke through Whitebeard's surface at this moment because of this knife attack, hitting his chest right in the middle. Puff! Whitebeard couldn't bear it anymore. He fended off the attacks of two legends one after another, and was punched firmly by Garp's blood shadow, and a mouthful of blood spurted out immediately. In an instant, the blood shadow of Kizaru, who was waiting for an opportunity, seemed to have been in the range where Whitebeard was, and the moment he vomited blood, it turned into light and passed by. The blood that Whitebeard spit out from his injury was swept away without any remaining. "Daddy!" The members of the Whitebeard pirates noticed this scene and shouted in horror. But at this moment, they have no room to think about other things. Thanks to the blocking of Whitebeard and the red-haired two, the blood shadow of Garp and the blood shadow of Akainu have no chance to stop them. Now they have successfully broken through the past and successfully entered the square under the obstruction of Marine. Scramble into the square. Rescue them. Whitebeard gritted his teeth and stood up again with sharp eyes. The captains had no choice but to know that this opportunity must not be missed, and turned their heads with red eyes to take the lead in rushing into the square to fight. Just let them in like this. Doflamingo suddenly showed an inexplicable smile, and kept watching the show with his arms folded. But Gecko Moria shook his head and smiled strangely. He, it's time to make a move. They were recruited here to deal with the four emperors. Now that the Whitebeard pirates and the Red Hair pirates rushed into the square one after another under their noses, there is no reason to stand on the sidelines. As a result, Moria jumped off the defensive wall first, and a large number of shadow bats flew out of her body, preventing the pirates from approaching the execution platform. Hancock and Tyrant Bear also shot one after another. It's just that the maverick Shichibukai, except Mahawk and Doflamingo, seem to be posturing after going down, or they are fighting regardless of enemy and friend. That's right, it's Hancock who makes no distinction between friend and foe. Beckman, Marco and other captains and cadres glanced at Tyrant Bear and others. Don't fight them head on. Target the execution platform. Marco yelled. At this moment, there was no troop of giants blocking the front, and no blood shadow of the Golden Lion in midair, so they flew up without hesitation. He wants to rush straight to the execution platform. Three brothers, he is about to go up in front of you. Shaw-En stood on the platform, looking at Marco, who was almost at the same level as her, and was still flying upwards. The captain of the Whitebeard pirates is really scary. Brother, what do you want to do? Kizaru watched the big Chingyun bird flying up, got up unhurriedly, turned his head and talked to Shaw-En leisurely. Just now I thought I could touch fish, and the public execution was handed over to Shaw-En. But the Golden Lion blood shadow was placed, and the Sengoku blood shadow did not move. It was obvious that they had to do it themselves. Marco the Phoenix, he's going straight to the execution platform. The surrounding Marines and the audience couldn't help but exclaim when they saw this. Although Marshal Sengoku is there above, if Marco is successfully allowed to go up and fight with his hands, the execution platform will not be able to withstand the battle and collapse. At that time, the rescue of the pirates will become easier. The most important thing is, if the threat is allowed to go to the execution platform, what will be the face of Marine? There is no public execution. But at the moment, Sengoku above was very calm. Marco's eyes were sharp, and the distance kept pulling in, but at this moment, the lights suddenly converged. Kizaru himself appears. I won't let you get away easily, Whitebeard pirates. Kizaru Pelusolino chuckled and kicked down with the familiar speed of light. The powerful light blast power is blasted together with Marco. Before that, Kizaru's blood shadow knocked Marco into the air. At this time, Kizaru can't perform poorly. This kick made Marco fly back with hatred. Well, it seems that it is not enough for you to work alone, we will also exercise our muscles and bones. Akainu didn't look up to look at Kizaru, but got up while talking to Shaw-en. I'll leave it to you here, those pirates can't get even half a step closer to the execution platform. Aokiji also stood up, staring at Beckman, Lakiru and others who came in from below. The cadres of the Sea Emperor are all very strong. Admiral didn't make a move, and the efforts of Vice Admirals alone were not enough to completely block Beckman and others. So Akainu and Aokiji also made a decisive move. Shaw-en nodded, keeping her eyes on the battlefield below. There are quite a lot of marine elites on the square. Admiral, Aokiji, Akainu, and Kizaru went off in person and became the strongest fortress, blocking Beckman, Rakiru, Marco, Vista and other captains and cadres ahead. Today, neither the son of the dragon nor the evil blood of Roger can escape. Akainu crossed his arms and said coldly to Beckman. The pirates looked heavy when they saw this. 3 admirals were in front, and there was a blood shadow of Aokiji behind them. Before the gap in the inner bay, it was already covered with frost. Fortunately, most of Shaw-en's blood shadows were outside at this time. Sengoku blood shadows, Garp blood shadows suppressed Whitebeard, and Huang Yuan blood shadows took the opportunity to collect blood. The blood shadow of Momoshiki and the blood shadow of Akainu entangled with the red-haired Shanks, dragging him on the broken ice and unable to get rid of it. For some reason, Golden Lion's blood shadow didn't attack directly, it seemed to be vigilant and protecting Shaw-en. That is to say, Beckman, the royal cadres led by Marco are facing the 3 admiral deities, and the blood shadow of Aokiji blocking the back of the square. Is this trying to catch us all? You think too highly of yourself. We are here, all the cadres. The pirates were not discouraged, they raised their fighting spirit and shouted to fight the Marines. Guns and muzzles, abilities hockey crisscross the square, a terrifying scene of war in Japan. The audience in front of the live broadcast screen were all stunned, no matter if they were civilians, the royal family, or the major forces. With such a large-scale war going on up to now, no one is not very shocked. The timid ones couldn't stop trembling, sweating and muttering, "This is the real war." Most of the people also swallowed their saliva and looked excited because they saw the strength of the blood shadow. Whitebeard was beaten and vomited blood. The blood shadow is too strong. Split by Whitebeard, he will be resurrected immediately after death, and there is the shadow of the hero Garp, and the shadow of Marshal Sengoku in the distance to support. Whitebeard can't hold it. The red hair was also dragged. The cadres rushed into the square. It must be intentional. Look, the 3 admirals are gone. They can't get close to the execution platform. The public is excited, because at this moment Marine's advantage is constantly expanding. The Whitebeard pirates and the Red Hair pirates couldn't even get close to Rayleigh, Luffy, and Ace on the execution platform. At this moment, on the screen, what everyone is witnessing is the scene of Marine working together to resist the attack of the pirates. Although it looked evenly matched, Beckman and Akainu battled inextricably. Beckman, who has a very deep level of hockey cultivation, can be as good as Akainu in every move, and he has the style of an emperor of the sea, which confirms the rumors of the Red Hair pirates' so-called twin emperors. Kizaru fought with Marco and Vista without any pressure. Sparkling Fruit's ability gave Kizaru an absolute speed advantage. Marco and Vista's attacks could hardly hit him. Only the sword energy and green flames passed by Kizaru's afterimage and exploded elsewhere. Among the 3 admirals, Aokiji Kuzan is the hardest, and Usopp, Lakiru, and Gabu are making breakthroughs against him. But they still underestimated Aokiji's strength. As Garp's disciple, frozen fruit is only his auxiliary strength, and he has no loss in physical skills. This almost hexagonal fighter makes Usopp helpless, and even Haki's bullets can only be used as a deterrent. As for the rest of the pirate captains, the cadres fought against Marines vice admirals and rear admirals, and they fought thoroughly. The sky is full of fire, and the effect of Haki is strong, and the sky has long been a strange twisted dark cloud. This kind of battle lasted for a period of time, which made people all over the world startled, but gradually became excited. The pirates are getting more and more exhausted, and Marine's almost crushing attitude makes them keep regressing. Great. Thanks to Shaw and Admiral. Great. Just keep fighting and end it. The Blood Shadow blocked the 2-4 Emperors, the other pirates have no main force, and they will lose soon. The whole world is cheering, and many people are already celebrating that Marine has an absolute advantage. The battle situation is too obvious. Whether it is the pirates who invaded the square, Whitebeard, or the red-haired one, the disadvantage is gradually increasing without all the Blood Shadows taking action. Isn't this a win? And all this is because of Shaw-en, Blood Shadow Admiral. It was the 3 Blood Shadows who rushed into the pirate group to fight for their lives, forcing Whitebeard and the 2 red-haired emperors to end the battle in person. It was the Blood Shadow that beat Whitebeard until he vomited blood, which further weakened the vigor of the pirates. Step by step, the battle with its current advantages has been built, and the strength of the Blood Shadow has completely let people all over the world see its horror. Blood Shadow Admiral. One person can block the 4 emperors. Shaw-en's name became louder and louder as war progressed. They forgot Shaw-en's age and childish face. The image of Shaw-en in everyone's mind became taller and taller. The Shichibukai at the scene looked at the Blood Shadow of Aokiji who released the freezing power not far away, and they didn't even shoot at all, looking at the scene in front of them in amazement. How long has it taken for him to actually progress to this level? An 8-year-old child with such a powerful ability can still control the direction of the war. Is he a born leader? Doflamingo has to admit that Shaw-en is becoming more and more pervert. Seeing the battle below that blocked the pirates from crossing the Thunder Pool, Sengoku was also very satisfied, and immediately turned his attention to the battle between Garp Blood Shadow and Whitebeard. It can be seen that Whitebeard is no longer fighting so hard at this time, and is still struggling to fight against Garp's Blood Shadow. The red hair in the sea of magma and fire is even more afraid to leave, especially a Kainu Blood Shadow, a weakling from immune to death, who is too powerful for the Pirate Alliance. Without the red hair, Whitebeard, it is only a matter of time before we defeat the pirates below. Sengoku smiled happily at Shaw-en on the platform, then looked at Rayleigh and said slowly. Luffy and Ace were extremely worried and couldn't hear Sengoku's words at all, and looked at the person they cared about with trembling eyes. Rayleigh was even more silent, his expression extremely ugly. He didn't care if he could be rescued, but he really didn't want to see the people who fought for him die. What's more surprising to him is, who is Shaw-en and why does she have such outrageous abilities? Whitebeard, the 2 red-haired people are among the strongest in the world, but they were dragged down by him and even injured. Chapter 91. About there. Looking at the battlefield below, Shaw-en thought that the current level is enough for the whole world to see her own strength clearly. Blood Shadow's current performance on the battlefield, rivaling the 4 emperors, and the 3 emperors fighting among thousands of troops. These are all Shaw-en deliberately showed for everyone to see. Otherwise, the Blood Shadow would have sent out a suicidal attack long ago to resolve the entire battle. The reason for doing this is precisely to announce the establishment of the Wireless Guild in the live broadcast to the whole world, so as to completely open up its popularity in the sea. Thinking about it, Shaw-en, who organizes the language, is about to take out the amplifying phone bug that he carries on his body, and surprise the whole world. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, the ground is cracked. A sudden change occurred in the center of the square, and a mountain bump grew directly on the ground, and it broke open immediately. All the Marines were taken aback, and retreated quickly while exclaiming. What I saw coming out of the ground turned out to be soldiers in the uniform of the Revolutionary Army, one after another. Revolutionary Army. Shaw-en was also a little surprised. They actually hid so well that they got here from the ground without being discovered. It's the 4 Marines of the Revolutionary Army. Did they bring the strength of the entire Revolutionary Army? The Marines widened their eyes and said in disbelief. At this critical juncture of the decisive battle with the pirates, why did the Sergeant Major of the Revolutionary Army bring people here? They teamed up with Whitebeard too. Sengoku, Grandma Crane, Akainu, Kizaru, Aokiji and other high-level executives also changed their faces drastically. This came out at the right time. The pirates entered the square and fought fiercely, and they were about to lose in a blink of an eye, but now Sengoku had to suspect that the Revolutionary Army came at this time on purpose. Because in this case, the combat power on the battlefield will be divided, and the people of the Revolutionary Army and the two pirate groups will indeed have a very good chance to break through the execution platform. The audience all over the world watching the live broadcast was in an uproar. All of them looked extremely shocked. The 4 Marine sergeants of the Revolutionary Army, a large number of Revolutionary Army cadres, and soldiers poured out of the tunnel. This is exactly the path opened by Sergeant Major Mori of the Western Army's O2 push fruit ability. But it's not very strange when you think about it carefully. Long as the leader of the Revolutionary Army, it's no secret now, his son, Monkey D. Luffy, was tied to the execution platform. It's normal for him to bring people to rescue him. It's not that Sengoku didn't expect that the Revolutionary Army would recruit people from all over the world, but he didn't expect them to appear in such a way at this time. Garp suddenly felt bad, and couldn't help cursing secretly. Don't even think about it, dragons are coming, and Garp doesn't know it yet. The Revolutionary Army gushing out is no nonsense. First, these soldiers stepped forward to join the pirate lineup and attacked Marine. Then, Sabo, the chief of the general staff, and Monkey D. Dragon, the leader, also appear from it. Luffy stared blankly at the dragon and Sabo, who broke out from the ground below, and didn't understand why they looked at him with such eyes. But soon, Long, Sabo, except for Sergeant Major Betty of the Eastern Army, all the Revolutionary Army cadres and above, went directly to kill Cheyenne on the platform without saying a word. Especially Monkey D. Dragon, flying straight up against the wind. You demons and Lee are even faster. Their first target is Shaw-en. Brothers, kill, go over there. The pirates were not surprised, but their morale was high. They shouted and charged, and wrote that the soldiers of the Revolutionary Army fought with Marine together. This is a tactic that the 3 parties have discussed in advance. The cadres of the Revolutionary Army capture the thief first and capture the king first. Kizaru, Akainu, Aokiji saw something bad, especially after the monkeyed dragon appeared in person. They looked surprised, and they were even more frightened when they saw him go straight to Shaw-en. They want to sneak attack Shaw-en. They all know that Shaw-en's blood shadow is strong, but her own strength is not that exaggerated. Now Garp, Sengoku, Momoshiki, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru are all outside. Once Shaw-en is approached by Monkey D. Dragon, the consequences will be disastrous. But after fighting for a long time, the 3 admirals who had long been entangled with the Whitebeard pirates and Red Hair pirates couldn't support Shaw-en in the first place. Asshole! Angrily, Kizaru kicked Marco away, just about to rush to save his brother. As a result, a bullet carrying Haki breaks the elemental's body and is forced to stop moving. Neither of you even think about going. Usopp set up his long gun, turned on the sniper mode, and grinned sarcastically. As long as the people in the field give up their opponents and want to rush over, he will shoot bullets with strong Haki without hesitation. Monkey D flew very quickly, and just as Kizaru and the others were moving, he could already see Jen-en's small body standing on the edge of the platform. Although he only looked like an 8-year-old child, Long didn't hold back at all. He knew that Shaw-en was not an ordinary child. Arguably, the greatest child ever. Shaw-en was very surprised. 2 seconds ago, she was thinking that she was going to declare the world and create an infinite guild by herself. 2 seconds later, such an accident happened. And the Revolutionary Army also attacked themselves in the first place, instead of saving people. However, Shaw-en didn't panic, and her slightly shocked face quickly regained her composure. Monkey D. Dragon thought that he could injure Shaw-en even if he couldn't completely succeed, so he raised his hand to make a move from the air. Audiences all over the world exclaimed at this moment. Sengoku even jumped directly to save Shaw-en. Garp looked impatient and tangled. But at this moment, a yellow sword chi slashed down vertically. The sharp blade, fierce Haki made Monkey dodge and also want to get close to Chanjin. But what greeted him was more sword energy slashing down. blocking all his chances to sneak attack Sha-en. Lion. Thousand/Valley. Sha-en smiled slightly. It was the Golden Lion Blood Shadow who made the shot. I am not stupid. Since I was taken away by Kizaru's Blood Shadow, how could I make this mistake again? The Golden Lion Blood Shadow has been staying in the air since just now. Even if it is dealing with the red hair, Whitebeard has no remote support, just to protect himself. It is precisely because of the Golden Lion Blood Shadow that Monkey has no choice but to push away a little in midair, fearfully looking at the taller Golden Lion Blood Shadow and Sengoku on the execution platform. At this time, the 3 sergeant majors also came one after another, but with the buffer of time, Kizaru finally had the opportunity to come over to protect Sha-en, and angrily stopped the sergeant majors of the Southern Army and the Northern Army. As for Sergeant Mori of the Western Army, he was blocked by another beam of light and fell back to the ground. Kizaru Blood Shadow, who had already rushed back when the Revolutionary Army attacked, happened to be here too. It didn't work this time. The difficulty of attacking Sha-en immediately increased dozens of times. Monkey D. Dragon's face is very ugly. They all attacked without saying a word. Who would have thought that even he could be easily stopped by the Golden Lion Blood Shadow? But once you start, there is no reason to stop easily. The tornado stirred up strong winds, vowing to drag Sha-en into the attack range. But then, without knowing when, the 10 major groups hit Monkey D. Dragon with the seawater hiding on the lower floor. The Golden Lion Blood Shadow even dived, rushing towards Monkey D. Dragon like an arrow. At the same time, Sha-en decisively let Momoshiki Blood Shadow, Akainu Blood Shadow, Garp Blood Shadow, etc. all start to return to defense. Even though the Revolutionary Army was stopped at this time, Sha-en knew that she was in the same position as the execution platform. If they couldn't take her down, they would probably choose to grab the 3 prisoners on it directly. Therefore, the situation on the execution platform is even more urgent. Sha-en still has things to announce about the Infinite Guild, so the Revolutionary Army and the pirates must not be allowed to succeed. Boom. 10 meters in front of the execution platform, violent fluctuations occurred in midair and on the ground. Especially the Northern Army Sergeant Major Crow, who is very powerful and can even fight on a par with Kizaru. Encouraged by the abilities of Betty of the Eastern Army, the strength of the other pirates and Revolutionary Army soldiers increased dramatically, which was equivalent to adding a buff to the entire team and increasing their strength. Although the captains and cadres such as Beckman, Rakiru, Marco, Bista, and Josie could not stop Kizaru, Akainu and Aokiji still entangled him and pressed forward step by step. For a time, cold air and magma raged, and waves of Haki's fluctuations shook the surroundings. Soon, other blood shadows came to join the battle, and they completely blocked this wave of attacks from the pirates and the Revolutionary Army. The monkeyed dragon was restrained by the Golden Lion's Blood Shadow and had no chance to get closer to Sha-en, with some helplessness in his eyes. With the 7 blood shadows returning to defense, Kizaru also returned to Sha-en's side to guard him personally, and said with lingering fear, "Are you okay?" "It's okay, brother. It seems that the Revolutionary Army, the Whitebeard Pirates, and the Red Hair Pirates have already discussed their alliance. Their goal is the execution platform. Whether they attack me or choose to save people, they must not be allowed to get close." Sha-en glanced at Whitebeard and then said seriously, "They will no longer have the opportunity to be near you, near the execution platform." Akainu Sakazuki and Aokiji Kuzan also chose to return to Sha-en to protect him. They said solemnly after hearing this. Blood Shadow quickly returned to defense, and the 3 of them were guarding Sha-en. If someone rushed over and hurt Sha-en, it would be really unworthy of becoming Marine's highest combat power. After withstanding the surprise attack by the Revolutionary Army, the situation did improve. 7 Blood Shadows joined the battle, among which Garp Blood Shadow, Akainu Blood Shadow, and Tiao Riang still looked desperate. The Golden Lion's Blood Shadow hangs in the air, attacking from time to time, but does not move forward to attack, and is always on guard against the monkeyed dragon. Indeed, Long never gave up his attack on Sha-en, and even gave up facing Sengoku on the top of the execution platform to save people. After Beckman, Marco, the pirate cadres and the sergeant major faced off against the 7 blood shadows and Marine, he chose to take action again. Because at this moment, no one can hit faster and more confidently than him. Even if there are 3 admirals guarding Sha-en, he is not afraid and is confident that he can hurt Sha-en. The next second, the monkeyed dragon, which rolled up the airflow out of thin air to form a violent wind, instantly cleared away the marine soldiers besieging it, stood in the eye of the wind and rushed towards Sha-en. This is his second attack. The wind is like a drill, and the three admirals' attacks will also be involved in it, giving him a short opportunity to attack Gen-en. The sizzling black thunder and lightning is even more bluffing, it looks so powerful. Audiences all over the world watched this scene with fear, because at this time, in addition to the earth-shattering battle below, there was also the monkeyed dragon, whose momentum was terrifying to death. Sha-en's eyes narrowed. The admiral-level combat power was not safe against the dragon, and he was about to let the golden lion blood shadow directly suppress it. The result is at this time. A figure rises from the ground. The iron fist roared out, and even more terrifying hockey lightning burst out. During the explosion, you can see Garp baring his teeth and punching brazenly. This punch broke the wind barrier, and a terrifying impact erupted directly from the air. The hockey on both sides collided, and some people below even collapsed to the ground. This is the battle between the top conquerors hockey. Old man, you, those who can do this, except. Apart from the blood shadows of Sengoku and Sha-en, the only one present was Garp. Monkeyed Dragon was surprised and never expected that Garp would stop him. Sengoku, Sha-en, the three admirals and Granny He were all a little surprised. Garp had promised before that he would not participate in the war. I am also a member of the Righteous Marines. In a sentence that resounded throughout the audience, Garp's iron fist still gained the upper hand and smashed Monkeyed Me out. After attacking his son personally, Garp did not hold back. He succeeded with one blow and immediately rushed over to pursue him. There was absolutely no chance for the dragon to continue to cause trouble to Sha-en. Why? Monkeyed Long was puzzled as to why his father would help with the public execution. One of the people above is a grandson. You shouldn't have come, let alone disrupted the public execution and attacked Sha-en. Garp spoke righteously, his eyes flashed with hesitation and then became more determined. Luffy, Ace will both die. Long gritted his teeth tightly, but showed no temper when facing Garp. Although he didn't know why, he knew what kind of person Garp was. Garp didn't say anything, and firmly blocked the dragon aside. He won't say that the world government will guarantee Luffy Ace's life, and he won't actually take action. The main purpose is to attract Whitebeard and other forces. This is also the condition that 5 elders exchanged with Garp. It is a show for the whole world to see. Otherwise, why would Garp just stand there and do nothing? Normally, even if the execution time is not on time, Marine will pay attention to the execution time, but no, the only person who must solve the execution is Rayleigh. Sha-en, Sengoku and others also know it. At this time, Ace was stunned when he saw Garp fighting with the dragon, and Rayleigh looked surprised. The sudden change was exposed to the eyes of people all over the world through live broadcast, and it also caused huge riots and uproar. No one expected that the Revolutionary Army would actually arrive for this public execution. What's even more shocking is that after the attack on Sha-en happened, 3 Admiral, the 7 Blood Shadows actually chose to return to defense so quickly, even ignoring the battlefield below to protect Sha-en, and even the hero Garp took action himself. The importance of Blood Shadow Admiral is self-evident. What's going on? The Revolutionary Army is here too. The 4 major sergeants, so many cadres, they are all here. No, how can the pirates and the Revolutionary Army cooperate with each other to deal with Marine? The evil organization is also colluding with the pirates. The people of the Alliance were in an uproar and looked nervous. The double regiment plus the Revolutionary Army, this lineup is really terrifying. If it weren't for the presence of the Blood Shadow Admiral, I am afraid that the 3 parties would have successfully rescued people at this time. Moreover, Marine is very strong, has blood shadows, soldiers of all levels, and tens of thousands of elites in the square, but now the people are also frightened. Especially after the attack on Sha-en failed, the Revolutionary Army and pirates began to readjust and join forces to attack. On Marine's side, there are 3 admirals guarding Sha-en on the platform, and Marshal Sengoku guarding the top of the execution platform. However, Garp blocked Monkey D. Dragon but was unable to pursue in depth and had no choice but to retreat. On the battlefield, the 6 Blood Shadows and Vice Admirals of all levels led the elites to fight. Especially after the Revolutionary Army gave up the attack on Sha'an, they joined forces with the pirates to form a rope. The Red Hair Pirates have powerful leaders such as Beckman, Rakiru, Usopp, and Gabu. The Whitebeard Pirates have captains such as Marco, Bista, and Josie. The Revolutionary Army has Sabo, the 4 major sergeants, and Monkeyed, Dragon. Coupled with the inspired pirates and revolutionary soldiers, their combat power is so huge that it shocks the world. Under the execution platform, the balance of victory began to tilt slowly. Although there are 3 blood shadows in the Blood Shadows, Akainu, Garp, and Momoshiki, they are not afraid of death and go on a rampage. In front of a group of pirate cadres with Haki, the captains are still a little stretched. They are not afraid of death and will be limited to a certain range, and they can only continue to cause destruction. The remaining people from the 3 parties have full space to unleash their strength and wreak havoc on the battlefield. The 4 commanders of the Revolutionary Army have completely unleashed their astonishing strength. All of them are close to the Admiral level. The strongest crow is even Admiral level. The immortal Momoshiki Blood Shadow is entangled by the crows of the Sergeant Major. Every suicidal attack will be avoided by his scattered flocks of crows and can be counterattacked with ease. His Coal Fruit ability actually restrained Momoshiki's Blood Shadow. It's really scary. The 3 parties are joining forces. Kizaru stood next to Sha'an and said with admiration. Beckman, Marco and other cadres and captains joined forces and were fighting fiercely with Kizaru Blood Shadow and Sengoku Blood Shadow. The golden light spread one after another, which showed that Sengoku's legendary strength was considerable. Calendar. The other side. Mori and another Sergeant Major faced off against the Aokiji Blood Shadow. Thanks to the flexibility of the push fruit, the freezing cold air could not quickly pursue them, and they counterattacked from time to time, a proper guerrilla warfare. But even so, the Blood Shadow was restrained in place. But the most critical thing on the battlefield at this time is Monkey Dragon. Former Admiral, a ferocious dragon dressed in Haki, after getting rid of Garp, he was fighting against the Blood Shadow of Akainu alone. The magma is billowing out, but the wind can guide the fire, which just limits the performance of Akainu's Blood Shadow, making it impossible for him to get up close and use powerful moves to die together. It can be said that Marine's high-end combat capabilities have reached a stalemate. Sengoku, San Admiral, and Granny He were all very stressed and frowned. If this continues, our troops will be consumed first. There are too many pirates and revolutionary troops, and the remaining cadres and captains, coupled with the inspiring ability of Sergeant Major East Blue, are simply terrifying in combat effectiveness. Even the pirate minions were able to move forward under gunfire and approach the execution platform. It can be said that the Marines are retreating, and their defensive space is constantly being compressed. Among them, the most terrifying one is Little Oz, a giant demon. Although he cannot move forward quickly, his huge body is unstoppable, especially with his ability to inspire. His eyes are red, and he is extremely powerful. With one strike of the knife, the strong wind whipped up will knock the Marines away, and they will continue to approach the execution platform from the side. If such a huge body is allowed to approach, I am afraid that the execution platform can be dismantled with one hand. Shichibukai, what are you doing? Sengoku is somewhat annoyed. These guys are simply not doing their job properly. Blocking the gap in the square on the front, one of them was not doing anything about red hair pirates, 2 were watching the show, and the others were just showing off. Pirates cannot be trusted. Grandma He was not surprised. She didn't know when she had arrived behind Sengoku, her eyes full of solemnity. Sha'an also noticed the pressure from Sengoku and others, but she was not much moved. It's really amazing that they can unite. World government is not a good thing. How about letting you people unite? I'm not afraid that the 5 elders will show their hidden fangs afterwards. But they may not be able to survive today. Garp Blood Shadow should also take action, otherwise he will be threatened with execution. In a flash of thought, Sha'an asked Garp Blood Shadow, who had withdrawn to protect herself, to take action again. Judging from the current battle situation, although the Monkey Dragon and other major cadres are in strong momentum, they still have separate troops to put fatal pressure on Marine in the Battle of Blood Shadow. But the situation is not that urgent. The most urgent thing is Little Oz. The vice admirals of the giant race couldn't resist the Little Oz after being blessed and encouraged. He was knocked away at the first contact. Now that there is no Blood Shadow to join, the speed is slowly increasing, and it won't take long before he can reach out and touch the execution platform. So the next moment, Garp's bloody shadow under the execution platform started to move, running and knocking away a group of revolutionary soldiers and pirates, until Shalizi left. Haki formed a strong wind on the outer layer of his body. Not to mention bullets and artillery fire. Even when Beasta saw this, he drew his sword and slashed, but he was counterattacked by the huge power of Garp's blood shadow, and the impact of running pushed him away. Being immortal and having legendary strength is no joke. Ace saw this scene on the execution platform. He was originally happy that the pirates had the advantage, but now he couldn't help but sink. The scene where Garp Blood Shadow beat up Whitebeard and vomited blood was witnessed by many people, and it was definitely not something Oz could take on. At this time, Monkeyed Long, Beckman, Usopp, Josie and others took action one after another, all trying to stop Garp Blood Shadow. They are very relaxed now and can completely deal with them. As a result, Garp Blood Shadow raised his hand. Terrifying fluctuations erupt. Fist bone. Meteorite. The strong Haki formed a fist and exploded, and a rapid wave of air directly separated the pirates, blocking the way, including the offensive of Monkey Dragon and others. Little Oz, there is nowhere to escape. Never let him get close to the execution platform. This is the order given by Shaw-en. But that's it. Two figures quickly fell from the sky. Ozzy, slow down. Whitebeard shouted without looking back. Immediately, he landed heavily with his footsteps, and blasted open the cracks in the sky with a backhand punch, colliding with Garp's Blood Shadow. The 12th level gust-like shock wave lifted the ground and sent everyone around flying out. The black thunder was centered on the two of them, and the fan-shaped low clouds connected upwards. The scene was extremely frightening and shocked countless people's jaws. Little Oz was startled. Just now, he couldn't help but feel frightened when faced with the killing momentum of Garp's Blood Shadow. He didn't expect that Father Whitebeard actually descended from the sky and saved him. In the middle of the field, the three-party coalition forces breathed a sigh of relief. With Whitebeard making a move, Garp's Blood Shadow would definitely have a harder time dealing with Little Ozzy. The advantage is still on their side. Whitebeard has entered the square. Sengoku and Nao's mother-in-law's expressions changed drastically. From their point of view, whether Little Ozzy or the other cadres, the combined threat is not as great as the pressure from a Whitebeard. Whitebeard, who controls the power of earthquakes, is the strongest man. No, there are red hair. The tension of the battle suddenly awakened the other Marines. Whitebeard rushed over to where the ice broke, but where is the redhead? At this moment, a ray of sword light flew quickly from behind Little Oz and hit the waist of Garp Blood Shadow. God avoids. The terrifying red and black sword energy is exactly the trick of the red-haired Shanks. Garp Blood Shadow was unable to react at this moment, and was fighting Whitebeard, and was hit by him in the blink of an eye. The Haki defense around the waist flashed wildly with Haki waves, and then was broken by the god and penetrated deep into the body. At this moment, the Blood Shadow of Garp could not withstand the joint efforts of Whitebeard and the red-haired man. Half of his body was cut open, and his body flew upside down rapidly and fell on the wall of the fortress. The blood in his waist was flowing freely, and his body shriveled up quickly. But soon, Garp's Blood Shadow recovered again and stood up again, with no injuries on his body. The Marines breathed a sigh of relief, but their expressions did not look relaxed at all. The battle on Little Oz's side failed. What's important is that even Whitebeard and the two red-haired Sea Emperors broke into the square. Dad and the redhead are here. Kill, brothers. Marine can't stop us. Ace. The pirates roared excitedly, suddenly bursting with confidence, and launched a more ferocious attack. The whole situation began to quickly tilt towards the pirates' camp, and it became increasingly difficult for the Marines to block it. The audience before the live broadcast was a little panicked, and some even looked horrified, unable to believe what the world would look like after Marine was defeated. If the righteous Marine can't resist the pirates, then the whole world will be in chaos. The era of great pirates will not end, but will become even more rampant. The major kingdoms are also panicking. Without the world government's Marine to resist the huge number of pirates like stars all over the world, no island can be immune to the pirates' intrusion and plunder. The whole world will be in chaos. Even the aloof five elders couldn't hold on watching Marine in the live broadcast at the moment, with a gloomy and dignified face. The only one who didn't care was the leader of the Knights of God, Street Gellinger. Whitebeard, the red hair, has also joined the battlefield, but he may not really be a threat to the execution platform. The boy is still very calm so far. Humph, only 6 of his 7 blood shadows are on the battlefield now, and the lion's shadow is still there. Sleepless. Quote. At this moment, his eyes are still locked on Sha-En's body, and what he is calculating is also Sha-En's blood shadow strength. The 5 elders nodded silently, but don't worry about it being false. This war is very important in front of the whole world. Marine must win. The 3 admirals that Marine can play now, Marshal Sengoku, have not moved yet, but for the current powerful pirate alliance, if they are not slack, they may not be able to come back. After all, the 3 parties join forces, and their combined power is enough to level the previous naval headquarters power. On the battlefield, the battle has already reached a fever pitch, and it is still the stage of the pirates' comeback. Garp's blood shadow rushed up again, and Whitebeard and the red-haired 2 teamed up, even if some troubles caused by suicide attacks could be dealt with. The aftermath followed one after another, and its intensity far exceeded the summit war that Sha-En knew. As a result, the square is now in a mess, and the Marine and the 3-party coalition forces are clearly separated, gradually turning into a battle to defend the execution platform. The situation of the pirates is very good, but at this moment, the red-haired Shanks is move. Immediately facing Sengoku, Sha-En shouted, Marshal Sengoku, Sha-En, you cannot win this war. Now, as long as the person is released, this war is over, and we will not continue to entangle. Elimination of Marine is not a redhead, the original intention of Whitebeard to join forces, what they want is to save people. And no matter who destroys who, it will be a huge disaster for this world, with great potential risks and many implications. It's better to stop Wang's Zhao at this point and take the opportunity to make a request. The Marines were taken aback when they heard the words, and then they shouted angrily, it's impossible for us to admit defeat. At a time like this, how can there be any reason to let people surrender? The red hair is insulting them. You let people go, and we will leave. Otherwise, you who are at a disadvantage will never be able to stop it. Shanks made such a request, and Whitebeard also agreed, because this is not just as simple as saving Ace and others. He looked directly at where Sengoku was, hoping to reach a certain tacit understanding. Marine's tenacious resistance is far beyond its current strength. If it continues now, there will inevitably be greater sacrifices. If Marine can agree to its request, it may be able to end it early. Even if you 3 admirals and the marshal end the battle in person, the outcome will be the same. Let me say it again, let Luffy, Ace and Rayleigh go. Today's battle ends here. Monkey D. Dragon's eyes changed slightly, and he immediately shouted no. It can be said that the pirates and the Revolutionary Army are winning at this time. A large group of cadres, members plus dragons, Whitebeard, and Red Hair are enough to destroy Marineford's Marine. But the 3 leaders are still afraid of Sha-En. For example, let the 3 blood shadows commit suicide without thinking, and specifically arrest the weak and kill them. They are not sure how to fully deal with it. Hearing this, Akainu, who was standing on the platform guarding Sha-En, refused on the spot, saying sharply, we will never bow to evil. Stop your thoughts, dragon. Saying that, Akainu decided to fight them again. Sha-En stood aside thoughtfully, wondering if he should take the opportunity to announce the matter of the Wireless Guild, then he looked up at where Sengoku was. At this time, Sengoku faced the red hair, Whitebeard, and the dragon and demanded to let them go to end the battle, and there was some hesitation in their gazes from a distance. Marshal Sengoku, don't you want to turn off the live broadcast, and then really? Sengoku looked at the battle below, but hesitated. The situation at hand has exceeded previous expectations. The cooperation of the 3 parties has caused the current war situation to develop rapidly in the worst direction. The number of Marine casualties was too many, and even the Vice Admiral could not withstand a group of pirates and revolutionary troops who were affected by the encouraged fruit. Especially when dealing with the Blood Shadow, they seemed to have forgotten all their worries and fought desperately. If Sha-En's Blood Shadow could not maintain strong physical strength, they would really not be able to stop their attack. As for giving up guarding Sha-En and joining the battle, Sengoku never thought about it. Because Sha En is so important to Marine, and today's battle alone shows its terrifying potential, it can be said that even if the public execution fails, Sha En will not be given up. Now that I have to admit defeat, what will Marine do? Doflamingo now laughed out loud when he saw Marine's weakness. He was even more excited when he saw the third admiral who would rather lose money on the battlefield than protect Sha En. If the three parties join forces, even the Blood Shadow cannot save it. There are too many cadres, and the three admirals will never be able to withstand it if they end up again. Gecko Moria obviously also believed that Marine was at an absolute disadvantage, and thought that he had been collecting corpses. So the executioners can't do anything to them today. Hancock looked calm and didn't care too much about it. Who loses and who wins, and how much does it have to do with her? But at this moment, Sha En glanced at Sengoku, then took out the megaphone and shouted directly, "It is impossible to stop us. We are the army of justice and we will fight to the end." As soon as the sound spread, the whole square was filled with blood shadows, all of them burst into peak momentum, like bright stars on the battlefield. This also attracted the attention of countless people, and even the viewers watching the live broadcast couldn't help but look at Sha En. Marine's Blood Shadow Admiral spoke, and his expression was very serious. Marine, refuse to surrender. HMPH, Whitebeard and the others will definitely not give up until they surrender. Doflamingo licked his lips when he heard Sha En's rejection. It's okay to refuse, the coalition of pirates and revolutionary army will not let Sha En off easily. What about the Blood Shadows? The 7 Blood Shadows will be defeated even under the suppression of absolute numerical superiority. Sha En Admiral, we will fight to the end. For the Marines, this was the encouragement given to them by Sha En. In an instant, everyone clenched their weapons and shouted Sha En's name. Although Admiral is only 8 years old, everyone admires him for his backbone, so what about his disadvantages? The words, "fight to the end," inspired the justice of the Marines. The cheers in the square made Sengoku, Granny He and others look at Sha En in surprise. I didn't expect Sha En to have such a great boost to our morale. What a righteous teacher. Sengoku, Granny He looked at each other and nodded silently. Since Sha En has said so, let's fight to the end. As for the pirates, everyone's expressions changed and they looked at Sha En solemnly. Whitebeard, Redhead, or Monkeyed Dragon. They will not underestimate Sha En. Although their coalition forces are now absolutely oppressive, Sha En still wants to fight to the end, so they must prepare for the worst. Especially when Sha En creates miracles time and time again, she doesn't dare to underestimate Sifu. If all the Blood Shadows come up and fight for their lives, we will also suffer heavy losses. Beckman looked at the Akainu Blood Shadow, Garp Blood Shadow, etc., and felt a little nervous. The pirates have experienced being blocked by 3 Blood Shadows. Thinking of the strange ability of killing and resurrecting just now, it would be a lie to say that they are not afraid. Fortunately, the 3 of them have enough strength to contain them together, but if Marine really gives up guarding and chooses to attack as a whole, the situation may change. At the same time, audiences around the world were shocked by Sha En's words, "fight to the end," and were in an uproar. Blood Shadow Admiral, he will fight to the end. You shouldn't let anyone go. Although pirates are very strong, first believe in Marine. Yes, trust Marine, trust Admiral. The people couldn't accept Marine's surrender to the pirates and applauded. But the one who is even more excited is Akainu Sakazuki on Sha En's side. He really didn't expect that Sha En would be so courageous. The pirates were all killed below, so he directly declared that they would fight to the end. For him who hates pirates, this is really exciting. Well said. So what if we join forces? A bunch of evil rabble. Akainu's eyes showed fighting intent, and magma flames appeared on his hands unconsciously. As long as the pirate moves forward a little further, he will also end up himself. Aren't you afraid of dying here today? At this time, Monkeyed Long frowned and looked at Sha En coldly and retorted. Fight to the end. If Sha En doesn't boost Marine's morale, maybe the world government will really choose to stop. Pity. The winner will be decided. Now, I want to announce the second thing. Sha En just chuckled, then raised his hand to face the entire square and said loudly. Suddenly, everyone was curious and stared. Although I hold the position of Admiral in Marine, I also created an independent force. Infinite Guild. So here, I announce that the Wireless Guild has officially formed an alliance with Marine, to fight against pirates with all our strength. Sha-En shouted out the words in one breath, with a bright look on her face. From the moment you announce it, your power is considered established, right? But for the whole world, Sha-En's declaration is really surprising. The fighting pirates, revolutionary troops, and Marine all stopped involuntarily, and even the injured were stunned for a moment. The live broadcast was broadcast all over the world, which shocked everyone and left them speechless for a long time. Because this kind of thing is too bizarre. As a Marine Admiral, Sha-En actually formed her own force, the Infinite Guild. The Marines were confused. They turned around blankly and looked at Sha-En with wide eyes. Is this still their Blood Shadow Admiral? By creating an independent force, is Sha-En going to judge the world government? Senior executives such as Sengoku, Granny He, Akainu, Aokiji and even Kizaru, Garp were dumbfounded. Old brother, you are too crazy. As a Marine Admiral, how can you create an independent force? Kizaru was speechless, his brother was so good at causing trouble. As a Marine, he created an Infinite Guild. 5 elders knew that he was going to turn his back on him right away. Don't worry bro, the Unlimited Guild is not an organization like the Revolutionary Army, nor is it a pirate organization, but a brand new neutral force. As soon as he finished talking to Kizaru, the system prompt sounded. Successfully complete all task conditions, the task is completed. Rewards obtained. 1. The number of 8th and 9th Blood Shadow dead soldiers. 2. Remove the resurrection cooling time of the 4th and 5th Blood Shadow soldier. 3. Twice replace the number of Blood Shadow dead soldiers. 4. 1 quota for the resurrection of skeletal remains. It really takes fame to complete the task. That's great. Sha-En suddenly realized that the task was successfully completed after he announced the existence of the Infinite Guild. No wonder there was no prompt to complete the site snatching in the name of the Unlimited Guild before. The problem came from here, and now the whole world knows the existence of the guild. With the foreshadowing of this war, it doesn't matter if you don't have a good reputation. Ding, the next phase of the task is now released. 1. Successfully create 2 4 Emperor's level Blood Shadow soldiers. 2. Use the Blood Shadow soldier to make 2 characters above the Admiral level surrender and belong to their own independent forces. 3. Let the independent forces replace a 4 Emperor's regiment or reach the level of the 4 Emperor's regiment, and occupy enough territory. 4. Kill a sufficient amount of celestial dragons. After completing ACDJ, the task, you can get rewards. 1. 10th, 11th, and 12th Blood Shadow soldiers. 2. Remove the cooling time of the resurrection of the 3 dead soldiers. 3. 3 times to replace the number of dead soldiers. 4. 2 quotas for corpse resurrection. You can choose a dead soldier and completely replicate its strength to yourself. After being pleasantly surprised, Sha-En was a little surprised when she saw the mission conditions. It's really amazingly difficult. Defeat the 4 Emperors again, and become a force at the 4 Emperors level. There is also the matter of killing the celestial dragons. How many weighty celestial dragons are considered worthwhile? Sha-En immediately thought of 5 elders, Geringer Street and others. The 4 Emperors are already difficult enough. Kaido, Big Mom, including the current Whitebeard, the red hair is not a difficult bone to crack, and it takes a plan to beat them up and vomit blood, and let the Blood Shadow cooperate. However, the difficulty is still slightly lighter, and the forces of the 4 Emperors are even more difficult, because they still need to recruit people and grab enough territory. The rarest of all is the Celestial Dragons. Sha-En's attitude towards Street Geringer could be seen clearly. After the death of a waste of the Roswald family, he would not let him go, and the Holy will rage. If he really kills someone who is important, it will be difficult to hide it, or even make him directly turn against the world government. These are all normal considerations. However, if this is completed, the strength of the Blood Shadow team will skyrocket. There are 3 full quotas, and 3 resurrection abilities. But what surprised Sha-En the most was that she could also gain strength. One's own strength has always been one's own shortcoming. For example, Sha-En does not have the strength to face pirates alone on the current battlefield. Even captains like Marco are invincible. This is the fact that one's own strength is insufficient, so putting aside other things, just the ability to reproduce one of the Blood Shadows is enough to cope with the difficulty of the task. This reward is worth it. It must be done. Sha-En's mood at this time is like this. It can be said that her eyes are bright, she is surprised and happy. Kizaru originally wanted to say a few more words to Sha-En. Don't be reckless and engage in independent forces, it's not good. Seeing the joy in Sha-En's eyes is even more confusing. It's over. My brother's childlike innocence is still there, how should this end? Kizaru is speechless and has a headache. 5 elders will not let Sha-En go on his own. Marshal Sengoku is also reluctant to part with such a potential power user. Maybe next, there will be a lot of trouble. But the words had already been spoken. Akainu Sakazuki was stunned, really unable to keep up with Sha-En's brain circuit. Aokiji Kuzan frowned and gave Garp a puzzled look. And for Whitebeard, Redhead, Dragon, and even the Shichibukai, it's all about wanting to blow up. The whole world was shocked by this. To put it simply, with Sha-En's Blood Shadow Fruit ability, if a faction is formed outside the Marine world government, its level of terror will directly exceed the 4 emperors. It was announced in the live broadcast, so it will make people feel so surprised. Afterwards, look for him again. Among the 5 elders among the powers, Street. Geringer stood up suddenly, and his face changed. Among them, Street. Satan shouted with anger. But they, together with people on the battlefield, people all over the world are still surprised. Sha-En was also pleasantly surprised by the calculation of the system tasks, when suddenly the sky roared with thunder. There are even thicker dark clouds over Marineford, which has already distorted the low-altitude dark clouds. Amidst the rumbling thunder, the phantom of a giant dragon flew quickly above the clouds. Blue scales, tail, etc. are faintly visible. Immediately, everyone in Marineford looked up, and many of them shouted directly, "It's Kaido. The world will ride the clouds and ride the fog, and it is in the form of a green dragon, so you don't need to think about who it is." Even more astonishing is still behind. A dragon chant rolled over. What an exciting battlefield. I saw Kaido, who didn't hide himself at all, flew through the dark clouds, looking at Marineford with huge eyes and laughing loudly. Behind him was sitting on a dark cloud, grinning, a scary Big Mom. This is truly the 4 emperors at Marineford. The faces of the Marines suddenly changed. Sengoku, Garp, Granny Crane, 3 Admiral and others immediately turned gloomy and gritted their teeth. How did Kaido and Big Mom come? They didn't receive any news at all. Report, Marshal Sengoku. The gates of justice have been breached. As early as a few minutes ago, Beast's pirates, cadres of Big Mom sailed over. The soldiers who communicated were covered in cold sweat and their mouths were trembling. It's too scary, the 4 selves are here. What? Sengoku immediately understood that Kaido and Big Mom probably did this intentionally. They had long planned to join the war. Avoid Marine's eyeliner, create the illusion that they are still in the territory, until now let the cadres pass the gate of justice, and then let the rest of the men break through the gate. Sengoku, ha 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 ha, long time no see. Kaido and Big Mom came together and stared straight at Sengoku. At the same time, on the side of the inner bay, a group of pirates appeared. Jin, Quinn, Jack, Katakuri, Perospero and others lead the way, bringing the cadres of the 2 regiments of Daxing. Kaido Big Mom's army is also on the way, and it can be reached in a few minutes. How could such a fun thing be without us, right? Sha-En. Kaido turned his head and stared at Sha-En. Although his words were relaxed, his eyes showed a strong killing intent. Big Mom said with a terrifying smile. Let us join the battle too. Sha-En, Sengoku and you, 10 of them can't escape today. Kaido, Big Mom and other cadres chased after them. All of them were extremely arrogant, even threatening to tell the Marine executives not to run away. But they want to join the battlefield, which will make the whole world panic. Kaido, Big Mom, the most vicious Sea Emperor. Katakuri and these cadres are all full of momentum. The huge pressure not only puts on naval headquarters but also makes countless people tremble. My God, how did this happen? Kaido, how did Big Mom come? 4 emperors gathered, how is this possible? Marine, this is really a desperate situation. The people were so frightened that they lost their voices and their pupils were incomparable. The combination of the Revolutionary Army and Whitebeard, Red Hair and others has already caused Marine to retreat steadily. Now that these people are added, everyone can see what kind of desperation Marine is facing. Marine, now we are really facing the crisis of destruction. Marineford, Akainu was furious immediately. Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji, Kizaru and others all changed their faces were extremely gloomy. This is really going to happen. Garp looked at Kaido, Big Mom, who came from the sky, very solemn. Our current strength is not enough to deal with the 4 emperors. Contact Mariajoy immediately for support. Granny Crane reacted extremely quickly, and immediately asked the communication soldier who was still at a loss behind him to take out the phone bug. In the current situation, only Mariajoy can save it. At this time, Sengoku gritted his teeth tightly and clenched his fist. These fools. Whitebeard, the Redhead, and the Revolutionary Army are already enemies. Now that the 4 emperors have gathered together with the Revolutionary Army, it is simply gathering all the enemies of Marine in the world. And after a fierce battle, how much strength do the soldiers have against the 4 emperors who joined in? Dilemma. A complete dilemma. Indeed, the Marines on the square even timidly held their weapons and trembled, stepped back unconsciously, and their eyes were terrified. 4 emperors. 4 emperors gather. How should we fight? The fight just now was already a battle against monsters. If not for the fact that Marine had Shaoen's blood shadow participating in the battle, they would have all resisted. But now, no matter how you look at it or think about it, your side has no chance of winning. The gears of fate have changed direction. Shaoen was also surprised that Kaido and Big Mom managed to escape the surveillance of the world government and Marine and came to the Marineford battlefield. This is very unlikely to happen, but now it is happening in front of us, and Kaido must have been planning this day. However, the arrival of the 4 emperors did make Shaoen look serious and less relaxed than before. After all, these are the 4 strongest pirate groups in the world. Any one of them is no small matter, let alone appearing together in Marineford. Even the 5 elders and Gellinger and Mariajoy couldn't sit still when they met. They stood up suddenly, and their expressions changed drastically. Kaido. Big Mom actually broke into the battlefield. How could such a big mistake happen? There was dissatisfaction with the intelligence department in Sa Tansheng's eyes, and he couldn't help shouting. The original plan was to attack Whitebeard. The appearance of the Revolutionary Army was already an accident, so there was no increase in combat power. 4 emperors teamed up, enough to break naval headquarters in a short time. It's beyond what Marine can handle, and we need support. Let Kong go now. Maybe we'll have one too. The rest of the 5 elders said one by one, and their eyes were fixed on Kaido and Big Mom who appeared in the live broadcast. They are high above and look down on the human beings below, but those with great strength are exceptions. Pirates 4 emperors, each of which makes the 5 elders feel jealous. How can the 4 collectively appear together with the Revolutionary Army to sit firmly on the Daiyutai? But at this time, Gellinger, who was also shocked, suddenly smiled. Or don't be so eager, you can see how Shaoen handles it first. Gellinger is always paying attention to Shaoen, and he is very concerned about this guy who kills celestial dragons. It's also because Geringer doesn't care about war at all, he only cares about Shaoen. Now is not the time for reckoning. 5 elders frowned slightly. His first reaction was not to approve of Gellinger's proposal. If it really can't bear it and Marineford is destroyed, the credibility of the world government will fall to the bottom, and there will be no remedy after the event. I see. Gellinger nodded slightly, then pointed to Shaoen on the live broadcast screen and said, he is very calm, although he doesn't look so relaxed. Blood Shadow is not simple. So far, Blood Shadow has not really displayed its full strength. Maybe we can first see what kind of power is secretly hidden by Blood Shadow Admiral. After saying these words, the 5 elders let go of their frowns and suddenly understood what Gellinger meant. Such a powerful talent in Shaoen may be hiding some secrets, and even assassinate celestial dragons. Look again, maybe you can see what the kid is up to. Then get ready first. Finally, 5 elders accepted Gellinger Street's suggestion. However, at this time on the battlefield, Kaido and Big Mom aggressively challenged Marine, threatening to destroy naval headquarters, and did not spare anyone. This made Akainu, Sengoku and others very annoyed, and they just wanted to say something. I only heard that the red-haired Shanks is also extremely disgusted with Kaido, and expressed to everyone in Marine, they are them, and we are us. Our purpose is only to save people. Let them go and we will evacuate them. After that, we have nothing to do with us, and we will not participate. Shanks' remarks, in addition to disregarding the relationship with Kaido and others, also made another request. Let go. Whitebeard was even more succinct, looking directly at Sengoku and Shaoan and shouting. If it wasn't for the wrong occasion, Kaido would have directly fought against Marine. Whitebeard was not happy about it. Kaido and Big Mom were taken aback for a moment, but they didn't expect the red hair, Whitebeard and others to have any intention of fighting. I have already hit here, tell them to let them go and stop fighting. HMPH. These cowardly fellows, why don't you let them go at such a good opportunity, can't you just grab them? But once Whitebeard and the redheads withdraw, Kaido will not have the strength to take over the battlefield and deal with the shadow of Marine Admiral and Shaoan. But at this moment, it depends on what choice Marine will make. People all over the world did not expect the situation to develop like this, and swallowed their throats a little nervously. They don't want Marine to surrender, but the enemy's strength is hopeless. What the people could still think of was what Shaoan had just said about Infinite Guild and FABU bowing. So, will Marine really choose to let him go? Sengoku is very complicated at the moment. Facing a large number of enemies, even his Buddha Sengoku feels powerless. With the surging pirates, the 4 emperors and the main force of the Revolutionary Army, Marine has almost no chance of winning against them. And the most important thing is that nothing happens to Shaoan. If we lose today, it will only be a temporary loss for Marine. In the future, Shaoan will definitely have a stronger ability to put down the Great Pirate Era. After many considerations, Sengoku was indeed moved and immediately wanted to order someone to shut down the live broadcast. As a result, at this time, Shaoan stood up, looked much more serious, and shouted loudly, "Let him go." Impossible. Shaoan. Sengoku was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect Shaoan to want to continue fighting. Why would he do this? Isn't the difference in strength not obvious enough? If the fight continues, it will only cause greater casualties to Marineford. Others were also surprised by Shaoan's response. Can this Blood Shadow Admiral really not see the situation clearly? That's the 4 emperors and the Revolutionary Army. Marine's current military strength can no longer handle it. I will be killed by pirates. We can't continue this situation. People looked at the screen, covering their mouths in despair, no matter whether Shaoan persisted or not. In this public execution that everyone has been waiting for, the showdown between Marine and the pirates will fail. In the square, Doflamingo, Eagle Eye and even Hancock and others looked up at Shaoan with extremely surprised expressions. Is he really crazy? In Mihawk's eyes, Shaoan is almost as calm as before. This kid has a stronger mind than those Marines who claim to be righteous. Looking for death. The current enemy Marine can't stop him. Doflamingo sneered, but was actually a little excited. Maybe we can see Shaoan die on the spot today. 4 emperors, the Revolutionary Army, there are so many strong men, they were already at a disadvantage and hopeless before. Now, even if Marine is all out and Shadow is there, it is impossible to defeat them. Hancock's tone was very positive, but also a little melancholy. Who would have thought that Marine would face such a situation today? Indeed, the current Marines are horrified to see the hellish atmosphere coming, and Kaido_Bigram, who threatens to destroy Marineford. With the addition of Whitebeard, Dragon, and Shanks on the other side, it can be said that the fighting spirit has declined sharply. Even if Shaoan shouted not to let anyone go and not to stop fighting, they were no longer as passionate as before. The only person present who was still willing to fight to the death was probably Akainu Sakazuki, but even he could only glare at Kaido at the moment and did not act impulsively. On the current battlefield, Kaido and Big Mom did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, they looked at the Marine executives on the execution platform in a joking manner. The coalition forces led by Whitebeard, Red Hair, and Dragon also took this opportunity to take a breath and wait for Marine Marshal Sengoku's response. After all, Shaoan is just an admiral, and there is no way he can persevere if he wants to fight alone. Sengoku was indeed a little hesitant at the moment, or in other words, Shaoan had created many miracles, and he was not sure what Shaoan was thinking. Brother, stop fighting. Even if Mariajoy sends someone here, he can't withstand the current situation. Kizaru couldn't help but feel anxious and reminded Shaoan in a low voice. There is no need to worry about leaving Green Hills without firewood. His thoughts are the same as those of Sengoku and others. As long as you Sha-en are fine, Marine's shame and failure today will be taken back. No, brother, if we don't fight today, both the Infinite Guild and Marine will lose their prestige. Instead of preparing for the worst, it won't make life easier for the pirates. Sha-en's eyes were firm and she still refused to persuade. What he said made Akainu couldn't help but admire. The entire Marine does not have Sha-en's persistence in justice. Immediately, my heart was definitely on Sha-en's side and I would fight to the death. However, Sha-en's plan goes far beyond adhering to principles and not letting people go. He raised his head and faced Kaido directly, provoking, "Since we're here, get out of the way. I will challenge you Kaido to a one-on-one challenge." One-on-one. Kaido. Hearing this, he was taken aback. The rest of the people looked at Sha-en in surprise and confusion. Are you kidding? With your Blood Shadow Fruit ability, who would dare to challenge you in a duel? That's not a complete joke. After all, the Blood Shadow ability is also Sha-en's own strength. If you don't use Blood Shadow, just me. Seeing Kaido's confused expression, Sha-en raised her fist and grinned. This kind of smile is undoubtedly a kind of naked contempt in Kaido's view. But the eyes of Long, Whitebeard, Hongfa and others also changed. I wonder what Sha-en is up to. She even proposed to challenge Kaido in a duel without using Blood Shadow. In an instant, Marineford's pirates and the entire revolutionary army looked at Sha-en in shock, confused. People watching the live broadcast swallowed their throats and did not understand Sha-en's behavior. Don't you know, Kaido is known as the strongest creature, with thick blood and strong strength. Immune to death. Moreover, how strong can Sha-en's own strength be when she is only 8 years old? Sengoku, Garp, Granny He, San Admiral and others all had their expressions change drastically, and they shouted, "No way Sha-en. Could it be that this kid wants to use his own life to resolve Marineford's crisis? After all, Sha-en herself has no strength, so she is seeking death." Confused. This was the first thought in Sengoku's mind. Kizaru was even more confused, thinking that he could no longer let his brother act like this, so he hurried over to persuade him. As a result, Sha-en had already expected that the most excited person must be Kizaru, and immediately whispered something to him, not knowing what he said. Immediately, although there was still worry on Kizaru's face, he backed away with hesitation and doubt in his heart, not stopping Sha-en. When Sengoku saw the actions between Kizaru and Sha-en, he understood that this was not an act of committing suicide, and immediately gave up the idea of persuading him. He still chose to believe Sha-en. HMPH, is it so obvious? Beckman felt that Sha-en's move was very strange, but he didn't expect such a situation. How would Sha-en complete the duel? There's no way he could die so easily. Maybe we can wait and see. Shanks also nodded solemnly, not daring to underestimate Sha-en's behavior, so he suggested to Whitebeard. Whitebeard stared at various unexpected Sha-en and nodded silently. The fierce battle so far can be said to be a turning point. It doesn't hurt to let Kaido and the others consume Sha-en. After they take a breath, they will continue to force Marine to compromise. He has a problem, no one is stupid enough to die. Katakuri and the others could also see the problem, and they were very puzzled. What means does Sha-en have to deal with Kaido? It can't really be to die in order to relieve the crisis of Marine being besieged, right? On the contrary, it was Big Mom, who knew something was wrong but still laughed loudly, with the intention of being angry, and said bluntly to Kaido, "I was provoked by an 8-year-old child, Kaido. The conspiracy is not right, so what? Crisis is always accompanied by opportunity. If Sha-en can really be killed, no matter what the risk is, Big Mom thinks it is worth it." As he spoke, Kaido transformed into a human form, holding a mace and glaring at Big Mom, about to say something. "Master Kaido, he dares to yell at you directly, I'm afraid there are other plots." Jin flew to Kaido's side, still looking suspiciously at Sha-en on the platform with her head held high. "Something is wrong, something is wrong. Want to fight Kaido-sama one-on-one without relying on the Blood Shadow ability. Isn't this a joke? But Sha-en is obviously not a mindless character since his debut. There must be something unknown, just to be on the safe side," Jin resolutely advised Kaido, wanting to remind him. Of course, Kaido is not brainless, but with confidence in his own strength and the majesty of being 4 emperors, how can he be afraid of Sha-en, a guy who is weak in himself? But right now, Sha-en glanced at the red-haired, Whitebeard side, and found that they were all very calm, obviously wanting to see how he would fight with the new Kaido, Big Mom. But this is also the effect Sha-en wanted, so he said again, "What? Kaido, do you need to consider the against me?" The tone is blatantly provocative. Jin, Katakuri and the others cried out in their hearts that it was terrible, but Big MBH laughed even louder. Kaido has a temperamental personality, how can he endure Sha-en's provocation? Especially when he provocatively speaks out again, he will be furious immediately. With one stroke of the mace, crackling lightning burst out, and the whole person went straight to Sha-en like a cannonball. "Don't be so arrogant, boy." He dared to yell without his own strength. One more move, Thunder 8 trigrams jumped up high and roared angrily. Seeing this, everyone looked solemnly, but at this moment, the 6 blood shadows on the square and the golden lion blood shadow in midair really didn't move. Not good. Sha-en is serious. Akainu's expression changed immediately, lava gushed out of his hands. Kizaru and Aokiji are also on Sha-en's side. How can Sha-en confront Kaido head-on, and they want to block it immediately? As a result, Sha-en took the initiative to move forward, and signaled to the 3rd Admiral to let people go first, don't worry. At the same time, Garp was also in a hurry, and Marine executives wanted to stop Kaido almost at the same time. Even Sengoku on the top of the execution platform called out to several people, and stopped Garp who wanted to make a move. "We should trust Sha-en." "You are crazy. How can Sha-en stop Kaido without his own strength?" Garp panicked immediately, but was blocked by Sengoku for a while, but lost the best chance of rescue. At this time, Kaido was approaching constantly, and seeing that a stick was about to hit Sha-en directly, everyone couldn't help but hold their breath. Kaido's speed is still too fast, so fast that everyone who pays attention feels suffocated. The ferocious haki, the mighty thunder, as if the sky is darkening at this moment. Can't stop, can't stop, Sha-en can't stop. Even if he has the strength, he may not be able to stop it. Kizaru regretted it instantly, regretting why Sha-en still messed around. Hey, I'm dead, Sha-en. Doflamingo felt great at this moment, being able to witness Sha-en die under Kaido's 8 fasts. Kaido is getting closer to Sha-en. With a ferocious expression and the corners of his mouth grinning, he dared to let himself approach such a distance directly, and he also felt that Sha-en had no chance. But at this moment, suddenly, Rayleigh's eyes widened suddenly on the execution platform, and an unbelievable expression appeared at this moment. This is a familiar aura made Rayleigh couldn't help pulling the chain forward a little, poking his head out to look at Sha-en on the platform. It can't be wrong, it can't be wrong. Why? Why does that kid have his breath on him? At this moment, Rayleigh was very shocked. God was shocked. Sengoku noticed Rayleigh's strangeness, but Sha-en didn't look at the crisis, and the next moment the same eyes widened. However, not only Sengoku and Rayleigh, but even Garp, Whitebeard, Red Hair and others below all changed their expressions dramatically. Impossible, impossible. These remnants of the old era roared in their hearts instantly. Before they had time to utter a cry of surprise, a wave of conquerors' haki that was familiar to them soared into the sky from behind Sha-en. Hollow to a solid figure appeared behind Sha-en. Afterwards, everyone was shocked by the sound of "God avoid." Kaido couldn't even react for a while, only to see the figure suddenly appearing behind Sha-en draw his sword, Lien Duan. All in one go. Black and red, flashing conqueror's lightning slash instantly crossed the distance between him and Sha-en, and by the time he reacted, the ferocious power was already in sight. At the first moment, Kaido's reaction was that Sha-en was cheating. The one who can't use the blood shadow is obviously not the Sha people. What else can it be besides the blood shadow? Moreover, God avoids this trick. Kaido is familiar with it, after all, he has fought against the red hair so many times. In the current situation, the thundering 8 trigrams hitting Sha-en didn't even have time to turn around, and Kaido was hit hard. Zzz. The sword light slashed on Kaido's body, and the red and black lightning exploded crazily. Under the powerful impact, Kaido had no idea that this blow would have such terrifying power, and his eyes almost popped out in an instant. The momentum of the Thunderbolt's attack was defeated, and in less than 2 seconds, he couldn't stand it and was directly knocked into the air, and he spat out a big mouthful of blood. Boom! Kaido's unusually strong body knocked down a corner of the naval headquarters fortress, and his body slid on the ground to draw a ditch, leading directly to the town buildings inside. At the same time, Kizaru's blood shadow and Kizaru's real body turned into light almost at the same time, using a container to catch all the blood spit out by Kaido, and none of the 10 drops fell. At this time, the Marines in the square, the pirates and even the Revolutionary Army, audiences all over the world could see clearly what happened just now. The entire audience was silent for an instant, not to mention the square. The whole world was strangely quiet at this moment, and after a long while, someone swallowed their throat and uttered an unbelievable name with difficulty, Gordy. Roger. Standing in front of Sha-an was not a figure that was completely red, as if made of blood-red materials, but a muscular man in a dark red captain's coat, pink shirt, and bare chest. With a black beard that curves upwards, Haki's eyes make him look like he's in the prime of his life. What he holds in his hand is a precious sword with a guard, and it is also one of the supreme sharp swords known to many people, named Ace. All kinds of characteristics are combined, and the familiar Haki moves that are reminiscent of the old days. Shanks was the first to cry, his hands were trembling, and he shouted in disbelief and joy, "Captain Roger! The whole world is all too familiar. Possesses countless wealth, fame, and power in the world, and is also the first One Piece. A real man of legend, Gol D. Roger. Everyone, whether it is the 5 elders, or the deeper existence of Mariajoy, or the people around the world recognized Roger at this moment, they were all shocked to the point of speechlessness and their pupils quaked. How is it possible? How is it possible? Am I dazzled? One Piece, he. Why did he appear here? He's dead, for 20 years. Impossible. Audiences all over the world began to howl in various ways, doubting life and the world. Some people even feel like they are dreaming. This is simply impossible. As we all know, One Piece is dead, executed by Marine, witnessed by the whole world in Logue Town. But now, he unexpectedly appeared, and he still appeared behind Sha-an, and shot Kaido, one of the 4 emperors, to fly and vomit blood. However, Rayleigh on the execution platform was crazy, shouting with tears, "It's you. It's you, brother." He has already noticed that Roger's resurrection is due to Sha-an's method, and no one can understand why it is not in the blood shadow state. But this is One Piece. The man who can make the world government desperately want to destroy the enemy with the most dangerous ability in the world. Roger. How could it be him? 5 elders, Street. Gellinger stood up suddenly at this moment, trembling all over. Not because of fear, but because it was too shocking, too incredible. Resurrection is enough for heaven-defying, but whether 5 elders, Street. Gellinger, or whoever is resurrected, Roger's resurrection is unacceptable. After a brief shock, everyone in the world who watched the live broadcast also reacted. It must be Sha-an. Roger is dead, dead for a long time. How could he be resurrected? It must be the ability of Blood Shadow Admiral. The Blood Shadow Fruit ability is the strongest and most terrifying ability in the world. Even the dead can be resurrected. At this moment, the people who gradually began to understand were even more shocked. But the difference is that for ordinary people, a character like Roger is a disaster and the source of all miserable lives. He has benefited many people, but also caused many people to fall into the disadvantages of the Great Pirate Era, and caused many ordinary people to be displaced and their wives to be separated. On the square, the Marine soldiers were also deeply shocked. Because Roger appeared so clearly in front of everyone, even the horrifying Haki in the air hadn't dissipated yet. Sha-an, what the hell did you do? Sengoku's heart trembled when he saw Roger's resurrection instead of the Blood Shadow. This matter is really too big, so big that it is no longer a situation that he, a marshal, can grasp. And does Sha-an's revived Roger have real thinking? If so, wouldn't Sha-an become the target of public criticism? For a moment, Sengoku's heart was extremely shocked, but at the same time extremely worried and uneasy. But generally speaking, Sha-an's release of Roger's combat power can indeed relieve Marine's current desperate situation. You know, the combination of Garp and Roger back then was able to destroy the strength of Rock's pirate. On the other hand, Garp's expression is not inferior to Sengoku's, and he is talking about the familiar figure in front of him, Roger. Aokiji, Akainu and other soldiers who were in a collective daze looked incomparably shocked. Sha-an, I really want to heaven-defying. He actually resurrected Roger. Creating blood shadows and resurrecting people. This is too outrageous. Although Roger's figure is not that of a blood shadow, it can be seen that it is similar to a blood shadow. The soldiers swallowed their throats and looked at the smiling Sha-an on the platform like they were looking up to God. This kind of ability, what else can it be if it is not a god? However, in the eyes of the celestial dragons who claim to be descendants of gods, Sha-an's act of resurrecting Roger is a death penalty. Five Elders was shocked, his expression gradually became ferocious, and the abilities on his body even gave off a black aura uncontrollably. He actually brought Roger back to life. Roger must not appear in this era. Roger, who has been on the final island, knows too much, and even has the ability to subvert everything. His threat is far greater than Rayleigh. Now it seems that Sha-an is the biggest enemy of celestial dragons in the past 800 years. Eternal life, resurrection, no, this little guy must die. Five Elders couldn't restrain their killing intent at all, making the whole power circle extremely cold. Regardless of whether this Roger is conscious or not, celestial dragons does not allow the ability to revive. Otherwise, when Sha-an cannot be controlled, will he resurrect all the enemies of celestial dragons in the past? What a catastrophe that would be for Mariajoy. Galinger Street. As he said that, Saint Vouchery, the martial god of justice, looked at him, and the murderous intent in his eyes already explained everything. Sha-an must be eradicated. Enemies and secrets from the past 800 years are not allowed to appear. However, at this time, Sha-an didn't know that after resurrecting Roger, the Holy Land Mariajoy was killed. He was laughing straight at Big Mom, who was so shocked that he opened his mouth wide and couldn't speak for a long time. Impossible, impossible, how can you resurrect a person whose soul has been obliterated? Roger, it's me, I'm Lin. Big Mom is extremely complicated, feeling the fantasy and trying to call Roger at the same time. Hey, Lin. Roger held the famous knife ace, tilted his head, and seemed to remember something. Sha-an did not hide anything but said, don't bother, he is conscious, but not much. This is similar to the loss of consciousness after the transformation of the tyrant bear. After all, Roger has been dead for a long time, and his soul has not fully recovered, so it is almost impossible to be reunited. He will only follow orders from Sha-an.